Hello, anyone and everyone who's out there. How are you? It is me. I am Jamie, the host of the .NET Core podcast. You'll have seen a whole bunch of stuff on that first page there. Thank you, anyone who's watching. It's been a long time since I've done this. So, what I'm proposing to do, firstly, I'm Jamie. I've said that about 4 times. I want to do some .NET development, and I'm going to mess around with an old project of mine which you should be able to see on screen. Orientate my hand properly. It's over there somewhere, somewhere on the screen, called Blazor. Now, Blazor was an app that I built ages ago. It feels like ages ago. Let's take a look. When did I build it? So here it is on GitHub, 2019. Or rather, that was when the last update to it was. So when was it first published? When did I first publish it? Let's go all the way back. So the initial commit was 2018, right? I first started working on this back when Blazor was a brand new thing, which is why it doesn't run anymore. We can rely on the absolute magic of Docker to get it running, but let's say we want to make some addition to it, right? We can't do that yet. But firstly, before we do any of that, we need to learn about the project, right? We've just found this project. It's a public open source project, so let's find out about it. You can either read it on GitHub or you can pull down the code and check it out in the README on disk. So what I'm going to do, we can see here, it is a simple example of how Blazor can be used to build a single page application against a known API. In this case, the Pokemon API. If you haven't seen the Pokemon API, it is awesome. Let's just skip through this. This is important stuff to know. Always know the license of the code that you're playing with, because otherwise you could end up in some kind of hot water or bother or something. But there you go. Okay, we are pull request welcome. So if you want to do a pull request, please do. But remember to always look for and read the code of conduct for a repo before you touch it. So let's just have another quick look at that before we go anywhere. Where is the code of conduct? Oh, there isn't one. What a wally. But what we will do instead is we will use, oh gosh, there we go, netcore.show. We'll go to the .NET Core podcast and we will have a look at the code of conduct. I know that the URL exists at this point, but there you go. We're going to use this code of conduct. I'm going to use it for any of the streams that I do. So if you are in the chat, do say hello. But we are going to use this code of conduct. Let me zoom in a little bit because that's a little bit small. So there you go. So essentially, be nice. And this code of conduct came from the Stack Exchange and Coding Blocks code of conducts. And if you are not a listener of Coding Blocks, do go ahead and check them out because they are awesome. It's one of the best, in my opinion, dev podcasts out there, and I've been listening for years. But yes, we want the community to be healthy and fun. We don't want anyone to be excluded. So please do look out for any rudeness or belittling language. That is not okay. Always be welcoming, patient, and assume good intentions. Don't be a jerk. We won't put up with name calling, bigotry, or inappropriate language at all. Any of those happen, please let me know. That's what we're going to apply for these streams. And because this repo doesn't have a code of conduct, we're going to use that as well. So I'll keep this open in case we need it, and I will pin it in case we need to come back to it. I'm sure we won't need it, but there you go. We'll zoom in one more time. Okay. Where were we? Oh, yes. So I've contributed towards this, and so has Joe from Coding Blocks. Joe's an awesome person. You should go check him out. If you want to just pull the code and get it running, you can actually just do docker pull progman Blazor, and it should just work. If not, then you should be able to, well, obviously you can, once you've pulled it, you can run it, but you can also build it in Docker from this repo. You can see here that this is a very old code base. So for those who don't know, .NET Core is now known as .NET 5 or .NET 6. As of right now, .NET 6 is the latest version. So we're 4 versions behind. Technically, there wasn't a .NET Core 4, so we're 3 versions behind. So we do actually need to get this up to date. We now know the command for getting it to build and run is .NET Run if you're happy with the command line, or Control and F5 or just F5 inside of Visual Studio or Rider, which you can see in the background here. I'm using Rider. And then if you want to, you can Docker build and then Docker run if you want to do it with Docker. So what we're going to do is going to have a bit of a poke around in here, if you'll pardon the expression. And then I want to start recreating this, but in modern Blazor. Now, I don't know what the latest version is, presumably Blazor 6. So we'll go have a look. Blazor.net. Let's have a look. Blazor, there we go. Build client apps with .net. Let's have a look. So, okay, cool. So it works like that. It's an ASP.NET feature, and it runs WebAssembly. Excellent. We'll keep this open as well because this could be useful, because this will link off to the documentation, so we'll need that. But yeah, let's have a poke around. Now, this isn't going to build, and I'm going to have to keep switching the font size because I don't know how to do that inside of Rider, but we'll work it out. Okay, we've got the same README open here, which is a nice feature that I like about Rider. So I know, having worked on this app before, there are 3 components. Let me change the font size here. Appearance. Now this is only going to affect the outer appearance of Rider, not the actual code appearance, but I can zoom in on that. So as you should be able to see, there's PokeBlazor client, which is what is selected there, PokeBlazor server, and PokeBlazor shared. Now, this app uses 3 components to provide you with a client, a server, and a shared library. Now, what's great about that is that when you run the application, the server side, the server exists, you access the server, and then via a web connection inside of a browser, the server then gives you the client code, gives the browser the ability to bootstrap it, and then the client and the server talk together, which is wonderful. And as such, the server is very, very bare bones. So we'll have a look in program.cs, which in .NET is always the place to start. So let's have a look. So we've got server, program, we've got a main, we've got a web host builder. You can tell this is an old version because you don't tend to do build web host anymore. So let's go have a look. All right, we've got edit. What we're doing is we're going to grab some information about it. We're not going to rebuild it just yet. So this, I don't know whether you can see, is .NET Core App 2.1. So just as we said, it's quite old, so we'll need to replace that. That's not a problem. So this is the .NET Core 2 way of bootstrapping a server. Once the server is up and running, we're going to go into the startup to wire everything together. Now there's a lot of stuff in here, but let's not worry about it too much. Let's just scroll in a little bit. We've got some JSON options, which is great for when we're dealing with JSON, which we may be doing, we may not be doing. Here's some great stuff for compression, for WASM stuff. I'm not sure whether that's still required in Blazor vLatest, but we'll find out. And then down here, we want to say that we want to compress any responses that we have. So this server isn't the API server we're talking to. This is just the server-side code that will give us some stuff. Sets up a default route, and then it says go use Blazor with client.program. We'll have a look at client.program in a moment, but that's essentially all we need to know. So there's not much going on the server. Now we will have a look at shared in a moment, but let's have a look at the client. Now I believe this is an old way to do Blazor, and that it isn't done like this anymore. So we'll hit some snags as we look through this. This is always good to look at old stuff, right? So first off, we've got a warning inside of Rider telling us that main does not exist, or perhaps it's not meant to be there. So that's fine. What we're going to do is we've got a singleton, which represents the state. This is the singleton that exists within the web client. So you can imagine that it's got nothing to do with singletons on the server, just the one inside the client. Again, I don't know whether this is how we actually do modern Blazor or not. We'll find out. So that main there should link to this main.cs.html, but it isn't, and I'm not sure why. Presumably because there's all sorts of stuff happening in here. We've got missing div tags apparently. The Pokemon search isn't closed. Now it is. There we go, that's happy. This one isn't closed. Now it is. There, that's happy again. So these are happy, but it does not know what inject means, and it does not know what state has changed means. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to build a brand new one from start and then sort of port the code over as we can. So the main element here is meant to show a view that you can interact with, and it has some extra stuff. It's got a gray out zone for when we're searching. It's got some random Pokemon result. Let's see what that is. Can we see what it is? It's a component. random Pokemon result. Here we go. So it's doing some stuff. There's lots of things to do. So what we're going to do, we're not really going to dig too much into that just yet. What we'll do, so we'll close this. We'll have a look at shared. What's shared? So shared in this instance, shared is the shared library, the C# library that is used both on the client and the server. Now remember, the server in this instance, PokeBlazor server, doesn't actually do anything. The PokeBlazor client does HTTP requests out to the Pokemon API, which we'll have a look at in a moment. I wonder if we could actually see that. Services, PokeState, blah, 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 blah. There you go. So if you haven't seen it before, let's talk about the Pokemon API. I'm a very big video game fan, so this was a cool API to use. There we go. We've even got GraphQL. Oh, excellent. I'm just going to close that. Sword and Shield is inaccurate because we're not working, so I'm not going to do that. That's fine. Okay. So the way that this works is you say Pokemon 1, and it will show you, so I want one Pokemon. And the first Pokemon, the Pokemon with ID number 1, is Bulbasaur, and this is the response you get. Fantastic. It gives you the abilities, all that kind of stuff. And that's what this is doing. So this is saying, if the supplied ID is valid, which we've done here, then go get me the JSON and asynchronously hydrate a C# object with that data. Otherwise, return it as null. Okay, fair enough. That's what the state does. And then we notify that the state has changed, which means we say, hey, go components, Blazor, we've changed everything, go do something. If you don't know about Blazor, we could talk about that in a moment. But I suppose the first thing we need to do is create a brand new Blazor thing. So let's go File, New. Now this is likely going to show off the location of everything on my hard drive. Just bear with me a second. Just going to change this off screen so you can't see it because I don't want to show you all of the other things on my computer are. Okay. Here we go. So this is PokeBlazor Redux. PokeBlazor Redux. That'll do. We're going to go with ASP .NET Core. What options do we have? What is it? Its type is, I believe, in order to do Blazor. There we go. Blazor Server, Blazor WebAssembly. Let's go Blazor WebAssembly, right? What's the worst that could happen? I'm going to put WASM on the end, so then we know it's the WebAssembly. WASM is the WebAssembly name. We're not going to add Docker support for now. We're going to say C#, we're going to say .NET 6. We don't worry about authentication because we want it to be open and free. We won't create that, and we'll create this in here, and we're going to go like this. So you likely didn't see much of that because it's such small text. But let's see what we get when we do this. We've said create me a brand new solution, a brand new Pokemon, a brand new Blazor WebAssembly. Now I haven't done Blazor since the 0.30 days, which is when I wrote PokeBlazor. So all of this is going to be completely new to me. So let's have a look at the program.cs. Oh, cool. It uses minimal API stuff. That's awesome. So let's scroll in a little bit, zoom in a little bit. Oh, yeah, .NET 6 is not fully supported in Rider. I thought I had the latest version. Let's have a look. About, what is the latest version? I've got 2021.2.2. Oh, bother. I need to update this, but that's not a problem. So this is a minimal API. So we're learning a whole bunch of stuff in this rather than just doing one thing, right? And the problem with that, let me just shush 1 second, please. Ryder, I know you're trying to be helpful, but bear with me a second. Okay. So with .NET 6 and C# 10, whoops, I keep bashing the microphone, I do apologize. With .NET 6 and C# 10, you can reduce everything down to this kind of format. So instead of having to do like namespace, PokeBlazor Redux, WASM, like that, and then public class program, like that, and then public static main, blah, 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 blah. You can actually just do this, puts it all on one file, and it uses implicit namespaces. So it assumes a namespace based on the project name, and then it can generate the classes for you at runtime. So that's not required. Now it's complaining because it doesn't know what these things are, but don't worry about that just yet. So what we're saying is we want a web host builder with the default stuff, and we can F12 into that if we want. Ryder will then go and download the source code so we can see it, and it's doing some default stuff. We don't have to worry about that. It's adding the WebAssembly stuff. We don't have to worry. Not a problem. Then it's saying we want the root of our app. So the way that Blazor works is it loads some HTML, loads a tiny amount of JavaScript to then Bootstrap loading some WebAssembly. The WebAssembly, if you don't know about it, it's a way of running binary code on the cloud. And the binary code will then, it does not escape the JavaScript sandbox it lives in. In this instance, the WebAssembly host builder will then pull down a very small version of .NET and your app, and then run everything inside the browser. Great thing about that is it works. If you've ever done any React stuff, it works a little bit like that, in that there is a root component throughout the code. I will show you in a minute, called with the ID app, and then you can have like some things to put in the header and the footer and things like that. So that's what these two lines are doing. Is saying, hey, there are two components in our app. One's called with the ID app, and the other one has this CSS selector. Not a problem. Then we're doing some standard ASP .NET Core stuff by adding a scoped service. Now, if you don't know what a service is, this is to do with, or rather scoped, this is to do with dependency injection. We're going to inject some services into the dependency injection container that runs around our app. And that way we don't have to use new when we want a class or a service of some kind. We can say, hey, get me a new upper thing and pass it to me when I want this thing. So the canonical examples would be if you have a service to talk to your database, you don't want to new up that service every time you want to talk to the database. You likely only want to new it once for every request that's coming in, and then have the system manage that and give you access to it as it comes in. That's great. Here we're adding a scoped service. So that means it's scoped to the system itself, right? So you don't have to worry. It's scoped to every request. So you'll have one thing all the way through. You don't have to worry about that too much. All of these red bits here are because Rider hasn't been told via a using statement what these things are. So let's go and add these things. So we can do control dot, and it'll say, do you want to import the missing references? I like to do them one at a time because sometimes it gets confused. So let's import system.uri. So what it's done is it's grabbed the using.system, grab the, base address doesn't exist because it doesn't know what a HTTP client is. So import one of those. Excellent. And then add scoped. We want to add, use method, that. The second item down is use method, Microsoft extensions, dependency, blah, blah, blah. Yes, we want to use that. Because it's too wide to display on my screen. There we go, in this file. Excellent. So now we're happy, right? The program.cs is happy. Let's have a look at app.razor, because that'll be the next place, because we're going to, again, build it and then run it. We don't have a startup, but we can add a startup if we want, and that's where we can start adding things, but we don't want to. So let's go have a look at app.razor. Okay, so okay, right, we can see this. We can see that there is a router, and it's for the app assembly for the type of app.assembly. Now, what is app? Let's find out. Can we F12 on that? Probably not. Okay, that's fine. But I guess that will be this file here. A little bit of a rewriting. I'm not sure. I haven't done modern Blazor. We can do some Googling later and find out. So if we were able to find stuff, it will go into found. If, for instance, the page that we're accessing is not found, it will go here. We'll see that in a moment. So the idea is that if you run your Blazor app and you type in / some page that doesn't exist, instead of getting a 404, you are redirected to this component, which exists on the page. This component is then hidden, and you are told, hey, the thing you tried to get is not available. In Blazor, the same way with Rider and the same thing with React and Angular and things like that. Everything is a component, and they look like HTTP components. So we have a component here for page title, which we should be able to F12. Yep, here we go. It's going to load it. Page title, if we zoom in, is a type of component base. One more time, just to spread it out a little bit. We can have a child content, so we can have a component within a component. And then we can have things like this is for the build render tree is for Blazor internal to tell it how to build it, and then the build title render tree says grab me an element, call it title, and then add the content, whatever child content it is, to it. Pretty simple. Hopefully you'll agree. It's a little complex. Don't worry if some of this is missing out on you. I'm still learning Blazor as we do this, and I did Blazor 0.3, which was back in 2018. And it, oh my goodness, right now it's 2021, so it's been a few years. Let's say we go to our app / some page that should exist. It should find it in, we should end up in the found component, and then it should say, hey, go and do this thing, right? Whatever it is, go do it. So that's pretty useful. Not the greatest, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Excuse me. Okay. So if we zoom in a little bit, let's have a look. So this is the index.html. All the pages will be built from this. Kind of like our static site generator works, or again, React and Angular. There's one document that represents like a template through which to inject parts of your page into it. And that's what this is for, right? And so can you see this? I don't know whether you can see that. Let me zoom in one more time. There we go. Div ID app loading, right? You remember when we were in program.cs and we said that we wanted our root component to be given the ID of app. If you don't know much about CSS or element selectors in HTML, a hash usually means the ID. So we're saying find the element with the ID app and inject our app into that element. And that's what this is doing, right? So when the app loads, before the WebAssembly content loads, the ASP.NET Core web server that is serving this content up will serve this HTML page as it is before this script loads. And what will happen is the words loading ... will appear on screen. And then once the WebAssembly JavaScript has loaded, and then it's been able to pull the .NET code, and then it's been able to pull the actual code that represents this project and loaded all of that up. When that happens, excuse me, my ear keeps popping. When that happens, what will happen is Blazor will step in, it will look for this div, and it will replace these contents with whatever we give it. So that's pretty cool. Everything else is pretty much standard HTML. You've got like a viewport, you've got a title, you're saying it's UTF-8, you've got some CSS, you're saying that this page exists on the /, and then again, you're loading in this JavaScript to load the WebAssembly. Now the difference here is that if something can't load, can you see that? Okay, it looks like you can. If this something can't load, then there will be a div with the idea of Blazor error UI. And that's where like a 404 or a 500 will happen. And that what's great about this is it will display a reload, so you can give it another go, or it'll display a dismiss. If you click the reload, it will quite literally try to reload the page again and try again. Otherwise, it will do some stuff and dismiss this error UI. Pretty useful for error handling. Now then, let's have a look at some of the pages we've got. Now this is before we've even run it, right? I don't even know whether this runs. So we know, right, the pages folder is an ASP.NET Core thing. This is a thing that ASP.NET Core brought in. These are called Razer Pages. Razer Pages are very similar to ASP.NET Core or ASP.NET MVC in that you will have a file here which has some HTML and it has some code built into it. Now you can put the code behind it in a code behind file, or you can leave it in the file itself. Some people like to mix and match. Some people like to do it one way. Some people like to do it the other. The idea is that it's up to you to decide how you want to do it. Now, what you can do, like I say, is you can create a new file, a new class or interface, and call it counter.razer.cs. And what will happen is this, you can see it just dropped in underneath. This then becomes the code behind this file here. And what you can do is you can then move this code into here if you want. Anyone who's ever done ASP.NET Web Forms, not WebAssembly, not Web API, not MVC, Web Forms, will now likely be pulling their hair out, screaming at me saying, Jamie, we're going back to Web Forms. Trust me, we're not. Don't worry about it. Some patterns exist just for a reason. So let's delete this file because we don't need it. That was only created for an example. So what does this page do? Now you remember if we go back to app.razer, was it app.razer? Yeah, we've got a page title element. So the page title element was added into this not found, which is like if we go to, I don't know, myblazerapp.com/404, we will likely end up in this element. Now in here, there's an element called page title. Now, if we look back in Counter, there is an element called page title. What's great about this is the code behind this, the HTML, the Razer, if we can see it. I don't know if we can. Fair enough. I don't think we can see it from here. But anyway, so this will render some HTML, which will likely, no, I know what this will do. This will go to the www root, go into the index, and it will take this title and change it. So then it won't say PokeBlazor Redux WASM. It will say Counter. Then we've got an H1, and we've got a paragraph with a link to this current count variable, and we've got a button. This tends to be the canonical example that the folks over at Microsoft show off when they want to show Blazor. What this does is when you click the button, as it's asking you to do, it's begging you to do, what happens is there is an on-click event, which is firing inside of .NET, not in JavaScript. And it points at the increment amount method, which is this C# method here. And what that happens is you click this button, and it calls this method, which calls current amount plus plus, which it starts at 0, adds 1 to it, and then that tells the Blazor engine, hey, something's changed. Go re-render whatever it is you need to re-render. Blazor steps in, looks at all of the application that's running inside the browser, and then goes, only this one thing changed. This number changed. So what things on screen use this number? Just this p tag here. Let's change the value, re-render that individual part of the page, and carry on. So there's no postbacks. So if you were thinking earlier on when I said web forms, you were thinking, oh my goodness, we've gone back in time to postbacks and pre-postbacks and post-postbacks and all that kind of, there is none of that. It all exists inside of the browser. When we upgrade this value, it then redraws this individual p tag because it's the only thing that it knows about across all of its components that has changed. Just going to check this. Sorry, yeah, I got a text message. Gonna hide that there, but there you go. But this is what this is doing. All this is a button on screen. In fact, let's run it and see it running, right? I keep waffling on about, oh, it does this and it does that. Let's take a look. So this is the counter here. It's likely going to load in my other browser, but that's not a problem. Oh, no. No such file or directory. Oh, goodness. Okay. That's probably because it's trying to run it on my Google Chrome instance, which doesn't really exist. Let's take a look. Yeah. I wonder if I could do that. Swap it to Firefox, which is already running. Try this again. Firefox browser is unavailable. Oh my goodness. This is not good, ladies and gentlemen, and friends of all different types. We've gone and messed something up here. Why don't we... I know. We'll not launch the browser. There we go. Try again. Let's see. This is a fresh install of Rider and all the stuff, so we can't run that. I'll tell you what we'll do. We will go, where is my terminal? .NET run. Oh, bother. ls cd PokeBlazor .NET run. There we go. Now it's building. We'll get Rider working in a moment, but that's not a problem. Click this button. It will load that there. We'll go over to here. And we'll run it from here. This will complain, hey, it's HTTPS, but you haven't installed the certificate. Don't worry. But, oh, bother. I pushed the wrong button. Or rather, I pushed the correct button. You know, we want people to hit this button. If you encounter this in the wild, you want to hit that button. But I'm running a dev site, so I can say advanced and I can say go. Okay, excellent. That's that loading, right? You saw it? Let's just F12 and inspect everything. I'm going to pull this out to another because I like to have it as a separate window, you see. Drag it in from over here. All right. Do this. I'm going to go network and I am going to go, where is it? Disable caching. Now, if I refresh again, you'll see loading and you can see lots of loading stuff happening, right? Whilst that loading was happening, whilst all of this was happening, let's go throttle down to slow 3G. Right. Okay. Is this even good? There we go. So we started loading the page. We've got the HTML. It's loading dot. Then it loads the WASM file. It then starts parsing through it, and then boom, here's Blazor showing us our app. So it's not as if it's an immediate thing, but it takes a moment to do it. So that was just to show you that the page loads, we get the HTML. So the first page that you saw was essentially a render of this file, which just had loading in the top left-hand corner. And then because of the way that HTML works, it then goes and gets this script, because what it does is it reads through, it sees this link here, it gets that link, gets through to here, shows that on the page, hits the script line. The browser then goes, hold up, I'm going to go and download this thing. So whilst I'm downloading this thing, I've got to show the loading div on screen. So I'm going to download this thing, load it into the browser. I'm going to run through it. And as it runs through it, it bootstraps Blazor and it starts the app up and it starts all the wiring up. So that's why we had loading ... to begin with, because it hadn't loaded Blazor. So it wasn't able to run this counter.razor. So let's have a look at the counter page. Now, if we remember back to the HTML, it is quite literally sets the page title. Page title. I could change this to Jeff. Oh gosh. There we go. Jeff. Stop and start. I don't think the stop and start is required, but we'll do that anyway. And refresh it. When we go to the counter, the page title is set to Jeff. If I inspect the HTML, it has set the title to this, but then maybe it's doing some other stuff as well. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so it sets the page title to Jeff. We've set it to Jeff. We've got an H1 saying counter. We've got an H1 saying counter. We've got a paragraph that has a current count with a current count. And it currently is 0 because when we load the page, defaults the value to 0. So if I click this, 1, 2, 3, that's because when we click, call increment count, which calls current count plus 1, or rather plus plus. So it gets the value, adds 1 to it, and shoves it back in the variable. And we can see that there's nothing special going on. There's no network requests happening. It's not happening anywhere else, so that's good. Excellent. So that's just to show you that how the counter works. So let's have a look at fetch data. This is essentially what we're going to be doing, everyone, with the Pokemon API. Except we're gonna wrap it up in a thing. So when we go to fetch data, we're going to inject an HTTP client. We're going to then set the page to weather forecast, add a H1, and then say we're going to demonstrate getting some data from the server. If we can't get anything, or we haven't got anything, forecasts, if we scroll down the bottom, ignore all this, private weather forecast array nullable forecasts is defaulting to null because it is nullable. So when we first load the page, it's going to be null. So we show the word loading in italics. That's what EM means. And then if that's not null, when it becomes not null, we then say, draw me a table for each through the items in the table, do some printing into the screen, and drop out. So how do we know that this is, how do we set this to not be null, right? Because we want to load the component and then go do an HTTP request and come back, right? So how does it do that? So there's a task that we can do, that we can override, called onInitialized async. So this is when the page is finished rendering and shown on screen, and Blazor wants to step back and say, hey boss, it's done, we can then say, hey, go get this thing. So we're going to say HTTP get from JSON async a weather forecast array. We'll have a look at the object in a moment. And the request URI is sample data weather.json, right? I realize that this is probably small on your screen. I do apologize. Next time, because I'm doing this as a bit of a gonzo thing, next time we'll have a magnifying glass and we'll be able to magnify on screen. But because it's in the www root folder, this is shared as a static entity, right? So if we go back here, what was the URL? Sample data weather.json. We can go and have a look at this file. And that's what this file looks like, because anything stored in here is available as a static file, right? I could probably go add a new existing file. No, a new file. Let's just call it a file. Call it this is amazing.txt. And we'll just have the word amazing in there. We save that. We'll see what happens. This is amazing.text. I'm not expecting this to work first off. There we go. So we're serving anything that's in that www root folder is in the root of the application. So you can see here, hopefully you can see it. It says localhost 7283/ and then I've put this is amazing. We've got the amazing file. Excellent. Okay, so let's go back 2. So we're back in the counter. Excellent. I'm going to delete this file because we don't need it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this weather forecast component and create another component from it. But we'll continue on with this. So we've got this uninitialized async. So when the component has been initialized and displayed to the user, we call this uninitialized async because it's been overridden. We then say go and get some data. As soon as this ends, as soon as that value changes and we drop out of this method, Blazor is told, hey, something has changed. So it then goes and quick steps through all of the variables and all of the stuff on the page and builds a diff of what was there and what is now there, and then figures out which components do I need to redraw, which parts of the page do I need to redraw, and only redraws those parts. So let's go to fetch data. So you saw it really quickly. If I F12 and I do some throttling down to 3G, we'll load the page. You see loading stops. Excellent. We've got the content. It's just about to refresh. Fabulous, I suppose. It's still quite big, right? Until we hit that weather.json, you may not have seen it. You may have blinked and missed it. Until we hit that weather.json, there was a bit of a nothing here. So we can tell you what we'll do. I wonder if we could do thread.sleep a whole second. So we're saying as soon as you finished initializing, wait a second, then go get the data, right? So let's see, where is my browser? So we've booted. The .NET 6 has been downloaded. We've got here, it says loading. We're going to hit a second and then we're going to then display the content on screen. So that was, we waited a second and then we went and did the get, the HTTP get, and then we carried on. Perhaps we could also, we'll leave it like that. We'll leave it like that. Let's get rid of that. Okay. So, here is the JSON object. So we've got a date time, a temperature in Celsius, a summary, and how to work out if it's Fahrenheit from the temperature in degrees C. Let's just get rid of this. There we go. So temperature degrees C, temperature degrees F, and we're just displaying it all in a table. Wonderful. Not a problem. Then the index.razor is where we land when we just go to, if we go here, it'll take a moment. So let me just also, this is me just clearing up after myself. So this is the hello world part, right? So we've got index, hello world, welcome to your Blazor app, and then a survey prompt. So this is a built-in component that is all about, where is that? I wonder where that is. Is that the shared stuff? Yeah. So this is there we go. Survey prompt is a component. So this shows you how to build components. Components are just built up of other HTML components and they have some code on them. Look at this, demonstrates how to supply some parameters. Fantastic. So we can use this to build our child components if we want. And if you actually look main layout and nav menu, these are probably these. So let's see. Yep. So the main layout has the sidebar with the nav menu on it, and it has the main content, which has an about button and the body. So where's the about? Hey, there's the about, and here's the body. So let's see if we can figure out where main layout goes. Main layout. Maybe it's just specially named. Let's have a look. Yeah, okay. Excuse me. So we've got a root view with some data, default layout, type of main layout. Layout view, layout, main layout. Excellent. So if I go like this, that shows us that layout we were just looking at. So if I go 404 as an example, sorry, there's nothing at this address. So let's find out where that was. There we go. Sorry, there's nothing at this address is when something is not found. So this, everyone, is in the app. If we go to a route which exists in the app, so if I go back here and I type in counter, that root exists. We hit this component, and this component never gets drawn. If we go to a URL which doesn't exist, it skips over this one and goes into the not found component and carries on from there. So if I go back to 404, what happens is we hit the app, it loads the app, but then it says, hey, we can't find what we're looking for. Go ahead and do something with it. Now we can build a custom not found if we want, but maybe that's outside of scope of this app. I'm not sure. Okay, so that's me done clicking around and figuring out how this is glued together. Let's see if we can start building something. The same with the nav menu, right? I talked about how there was code behind in the previous thing. You can actually supply individual CSS files for each individual component. So let's have a look at, let's close this and this and this and this and this and this. Let's have a look at the main layout.razor, right? We can see there's some stuff going on, and we can see there's some styles there. Perhaps they're supplied in here. So these are the individual files, the individual styles that are glued together and supplied with your component called main layout. In the same way, or rather in a similar way to how Angular and React and Vue and all of these componentized UI frameworks and libraries work, this is doing the same thing. Razer will grab all of the CSS for all of the components on screen, chunk them together and send them across to the browser, or in this case, it's already in the browser, so it chunks them together and exposes it to the browser to say, hey, this is the CSS you want to display for the page. A great idea. So let's just close these. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create something called, it's not going to be called fetch data, but it's going to be very similar. So, oh gosh, I went and copy pasted that line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy paste this. It's going to be fetch data. We're going to call it Blazor. Blazor Pokemon search. Whoops. Search. There we go. So I'm actually going to get rid of that because we don't need it. Let's call this Pokemon search. Whoops. And I'll zoom in a moment for you, everyone. Let's collapse that. So we now have a component called Pokemon search. It responds to Pokemon search for now. Now I wonder whether we can actually get to it now. Pokemon search. Does it exist? Does it exist? It doesn't exist. Okay, so we need to stop and start the application. I wonder if I can edit this such that it doesn't open the browser after launch. Okay, so we're saying don't launch it with the browser. Let's see what happens. Can we launch it now? Oh, it's actually, is it running? I wonder. Let's find out. Nope. Okay, we're going to have to continue to run it from the command line just because I have something strange set up in my computer. Doesn't matter. It's not a problem. We can work around it. When we need to have debugging, we'll investigate why it's not debugging. At the moment, I don't need it, so we'll carry on. So if I go to Pokemon search, we should end up on Pokemon search. So I'm going to do Pokemon search. I'm actually going to do something really quick to see if I can do this. I'm going to go private, private page. Oh, there needs to be a string. Oh gosh. I'm trying to do some premature optimization here. Yeah, page, oops, page title. I wonder if I can do that. So what I've done here, everyone, let me just collapse everything that we don't need to see just yet. Is in the code, I've created a variable called page title, and I'm seeing whether we can actually just use that here. I don't know. It's worth a try, right? Let's see what happens. Pokemon search, Pokemon search. So if I change this to Pokemon -search, I refresh. Okay, so that hasn't worked because we don't have a page title anymore. I wonder if we need to do at model. You know what? It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. What I'll do is I'll just copy paste it twice. I don't mind. I don't mind. Sometimes you don't need to optimize everything. Put that there. Put that there. This will be the greatest Pokemon search system. Oh gosh, I can type everyone. I do. Intentional misspelling. Right, so we refresh that. Okay, so we definitely do need to stop it and start it again. That's not a problem. Okay, refresh. Pokemon search. This will be the greatest Pokemon search system ever. Pokemon search. Excellent. So I want to have a model public. Oh gosh. Public. It's because my keyboard is slightly off center, you see. Let's put it into the center. Then it'll be easier to type, right? Public class Pokemon. So I don't know what needs to be in the Pokemon class. So let's go and have a look at the other Rider project and see what it looks like. So a Pokemon has an ID and name, whether it is default, its base experience, weight, and height, and has some other things that we don't need just yet. So let's just grab these. I'm going to copy paste these. Whoops. One over here. There we go. So we have a Pokemon. It has an ID, a name, default, base experience, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to have one Pokemon found Pokemon. Yeah. So this time it's going to be nullable. Excellent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here at if Pokemon, nope, found Pokemon is equal to null. Can I just literally write text here? I can. Oops. Couldn't catch or even one. Okay. So what this is going to do, everyone, is I'm going to stop that and start it again. Again, this is probably something that I can do to fix the issue that I'm having inside of Rider, but I feel like it's a Rider specific thing. I don't know. Let's have a look. So they set in the project.json. We don't want to launch it. I'm going to get rid of this one because we don't need this one. This is confusing me. I'm on Linux, right? So I don't need the ISS Express one. Let's have a project. Blah, 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 blah. I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes to see if I can debug this. Right, let's get rid of the ISS Express profile because we don't need that. Framework, debugger, environmental variables true. .NET run message true. ISS settings, get rid of that because don't need that. Cannot attach Blazor debugger via. You know what? It's probably because I'm running an old version of Rider. Doesn't matter. Not a problem. We'll carry on. It's okay. Right. So this time when we load this page, what it's going to do is there's going to be a null found Pokemon variable, which is of type Pokemon. That's going to be null when we load the page. And so when we load the page, it's going to be null here. So it's going to say, I couldn't catch them all or even one. Couldn't catch them all or even one. Excellent. So what we need to do instead in here is we need to show some kind of search system. So if we haven't found one, we need to allow the user to search for one. And then otherwise, else user has searched for a Pokemon. We found one. So display it. Oh gosh, it's on screen. Okay. So if we were able to now this is showing up as gray because the else block isn't doing anything yet, but we will in a moment. So what we'll do, we will go P, and then we'll go found Pokemon. Is that how we do it? I feel like we should do it that way. Let's have a look. at for each. Okay. At found. Oh gosh. Found Pokemon dot name. So if we're able to find one, we're going to say found this Pokemon name. That's all we're going to do. We're just going to say we found it and we say its name. So we'll quit out and come back. So when the page first loads, we will never ever get this else. Right? Oh, found Pokemon is never assigned to. That's fine. It's just telling us this is a warning from the C# debug. It's always worth reading the warnings. Don't just ignore them. So we've got some things here. We're saying it's a C# 8618 non-nullable field must contain a non-null value when exiting the constructor. Now, what I want this to be is I want this to be nullable. So let's make this nullable. There we go. That will get rid of that first error, that first warning there. Second warning, non-nullable property name must contain a non-null value when exiting the constructor. Oh, okay. That will quieten that down. Yeah, because we're always going to get a name from the API, and so I'm saying it should be null. And this bang here says ignore the warning. Doesn't matter. I know what I'm doing. C#. Don't worry about me, which will fix this warning. Then finally, Pokemon search.found Pokemon is never assigned to, will always have the default value of null. That's perfectly fine. It's telling us that on line 55. So where is that? That's here. It's always going to be null. That's not a problem. Let's cancel that. Start it again. It's always worth reading these warning messages. Okay, so this is never assigned to, will always have its default value. Don't worry, we're going to come back to that in a moment. It's because it's never being assigned to. This variable isn't giving us that error because it's being assigned to here. Oh, excuse me. Right, okay. So I guess we should go and get a Pokemon. So let's have a look, see how we do that in here. So in the Poke state, we said, blah, 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 go get a Pokemon with this ID. Right, we are going to assume that the user will always give us the correct input for now. Never assume that in the correct, in runtime code. But what we're saying is, get from JSON async. It doesn't know what ID is. Don't worry about that. How did we set ID here? It was just passed in, wasn't it? Yeah, okay. So we're going to say public string ID. I think we should be able to just, yeah, public string ID. So that then stops this from playing. I'm going to set that to private, actually. Private. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I am going to say, can I do ID? Oh gosh, let's try this. ID. Yeah. Equals 1. That's an int, but don't worry about it. We'll make it into a non-int in a moment. So when the page loads, it's going to say couldn't catch them all or even 1. Then it's going to set the ID to 1. We'll have a search system in a moment to allow us to search for that. And then when that value changes, when the page has finished initializing, we're going to hit the on initialized async. We're then going to go to the Pokemon API and we're going to say, hey, go get me the Pokemon with the ID of whatever ID is. And then it's going to return it. But what we're going to do first is we need to make sure that that is the actual API call to make, because it may have changed. Right, go have a look on the Pokemon API. We say Pokemon API v2 Pokemon 1. Holy moly, look at this. Right, let's not worry about all of that yet, but that's the URL we're going to. That's the ID. Okay, fair enough. We can actually, oh my goodness, we could do it by name. V2 Pokemon Ditto. I'm going to have to remember that. And that's how you do it. V2 Pokemon Ditto. How are we doing here? V2 Pokemon ID. So we could actually type in Bulbasaur there. Well, I'll tell you what, let's run this and see it working first before we start messing with it and making it better, right? Done it, run. ID is always null. Now, you see how we've dropped this one now. This one is now not always null because the C# compiler can see that we are setting it there. So it's no longer always null, but we can now see here at line 58, this one is always going to be null. But don't worry, because we are eventually going to allow the user to add a value there. So let's go Pokemon search and refresh the page. It loads, it then gets Bulbasaur. So how do we know that worked? Whoops. How do we know that worked? Let's do a thread.sleep for 2.5 seconds. You don't have to worry about this. This is just me showing off that it will actually sleep there and not actually run. Oh gosh, it wasn't finished yet. There we go. That was because I tried to start running it before it was ready to actually run. So let me rerun this again because you saw that. It loads the whole page. It waits for 2.5 seconds and then goes and gets Pokemon. So we can see that here, right? We can see the weather.json there, but we can also see the call out to 1 here, which is the call out to the Pokemon API. If we go to headers, you can see it called straight out to the Pokemon API. And this is the code that's running inside the browser. The code in the browser has made this HTTP request for us using .NET, and it's gotten all of this data back. Then it started to parse the data, and what it's done is it's deserialized the data into this Pokemon class, which only has the ID, name, whether it's default, base experience, height, and weight. So it only grabs the information that is in here, right? So that's great. We've gotten that data back. But the problem is we're sending a string, right? How do we know the user's going to enter a string? So we need to somehow, when the user types something in, we need to make sure there is a number or that it is a reserved keyword that is the name of one of the Pokemon. But we won't do either of those yet, because what we need to do is we need to make a thing such that the user can type it in, right? So what we'll do is we will have a look at how we did it before. Previously on Pokemon. So I'm going to ignore all of these issues. Random Pokemon search. There we go. So I had a component called random Pokemon search. So let's go random Pokemon search. Random Pokemon search. Right. Okay. Holy moly, look at this. Okay. So I called it Pokemon's Dex. Enter the ID of a Pokemon's. All right. Let's do this. So most of these things, I'll zoom in a little bit. Most of these divs, these classes on the divs are because I did it using SemanticUI. I said I want a UI with 2 columns, I want it centered and in a grid. And then it would do this. But don't worry about that. We don't need to do that just yet. So what we need to do is if we can't find a Pokemon, couldn't find them all, enter the ID of a Pokemon's, intentionally misspelt. Let's get rid of this. We don't need that line anymore. Oh gosh. We'll put all of this into a component in a little bit, but we need to copy over the relevant parts. So we have something which says, show me the ID. Actually, what is this using? Is this using Bootstrap? Oh gosh, did you see that? Loaded 8 megabytes of resources. Okay, it is. It's using Bootstrap. Okay, so we can use like divs and rows and columns and stuff. So why don't we do that? So div class row div class. I wonder if we still have to do call, or if we could just get away with call. It's been a long time since I did any Bootstrap, everyone. So this is still new to me. Or rather, it's not new. It's just it's been a while. So this will be using the latest version of Bootstrap. So presumably, I guess Bootstrap 5? Let's have a look. Yeah, Bootstrap 5. So as far as I'm aware, I could just put col and Bootstrap will figure out how many columns we need. So let's refresh that. Enter the ID of a Pokemon and click search. Excellent. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the backticks and put quotes around it. That's it. That's the one we want. Quote. I think that won't have to be. Nope, it needs to be rebuilt. I'll rebuild it in a moment. Okay, so we've got the search string, which tells us what to do. And then previously we had an input and a search. Okay, so we need a row. We need 2 columns. It needs to be centered. Okay, that's fair enough. So what we want here, where's my other rider window? There it is. Okay, let's collapse this. So we want a row with 2 columns. Div class row. Wrong kind of row. ROE is a type of fish. Div class call. And then div class call. Okay. So this one is going to have the input. So we're saying input type text. Actually, we'll change that to input type number. Make it a little bit more secure, but we'll do that later. We're going to change this from ID to Pokemon ID. Okay. So blah, 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 blah. Pokemon ID. There we go. So now the user has the ability to change that value. And then when we are done, whoops, we are going to say, allow the user. I'm going to take this off because I don't know whether that's going to work. This is likely wrong, so we don't need that just yet. We'll copy that in a moment. We'll stop and start this because I'll need to style that button, you see. So why don't we do that? It's always good to make small changes as you iterate through it. Don't make a whole bunch of changes and then wonder about why it's all broken. So line 73, and then we'll tidy this up and we'll go back through it in a moment. It's a field called Pokemon ID. Must contain a non-nullable value. Consider marking the field as nullable. We will in a moment. And then on line 73, Pokemon search.Pokemon ID is never assigned. Pokemon search.Pokemon ID is never assigned. So why don't we, just for now, make it nullable. I always like to deal with the warnings that I can deal with when I see them, because that's kind of useful. So where are we up to? An hour. Okay. So an hour in, we've got it running and we should have a search box. Look at that. Oh yeah. So I can go like this and add some stuff. And I can click the button and it doesn't do anything. So it's not wired up. But before we do, let's make it look nice. Now I always forget the styles that go on Bootstrap buttons. Let's have a look. Let's go with light. Light. BTN light. There we go. Stop it and start it again. We'll increase this dev loop. We'll make so the dev loop is I make a change and then I hit run again and it works, right? So we'll decrease that dev loop very shortly. Just going to close this for now. Refresh this. So we now should have a light button. Doesn't look too much like a button because I've given it the light. Oh, error it. Never seen that before. Search. An unhandled error occurred. Goodness, let's have a look, see if we can find out what happened. A cause error. Oh my goodness. Cross origin. Oh yes, okay. So it's a cause error, but it's not a cause error. When I push that button, it's trying to do the search for me. We don't want it to do that. I don't know why it's trying to do the search for me. Oh well, not a problem. What we want to do is we want to have a look at this. Where did we have the button? It was in the counter. You see, we're gonna start using all the different things from different places. So we've got a button class. Actually, well, let's make it a button class primary. Button class primary. There we go. A search button. And then we're going to say on click, call this method. Do we have type button on here? We don't. Right, let's remove that type button as well, just to make sure. Whoops, just to make it look like that. Now increment count doesn't exist, so let's go make a method. I'm going to hide all of this to do with the. We don't need to show the contents of that anymore, and we don't need this anymore, so we'll just get rid of that. Okay, and this, just cleaning up a little bit. So what we've done, we've created an on-click thing, and we've called it increment count. We don't need to call it that. We're going to call it something else in a moment, and we need a method. So we're going to go, let's go public. I don't know whether it needs to be public. Rider will tell me if it doesn't need to be public. We're going to call it void. We are going let's see how this looks. Private void method name. Okay, so let's go private void. Whoops. search for Pokemon. Okay, so firstly, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to move this call. Okay, move that call into here. Then we're going to actually get rid of that method. So we're now no longer, when the page loads, we need to make that an async task. We are no longer going to, immediately search for a Pokemon, right? We're going to load the page, wait for the user to type something in, and then hit the button to search for a Pokemon. Now it's currently complaining because I wonder whether that will work. I mean, it's an async call. You would assume there would be an on-click async. Click. There isn't an on-click async. Okay, let's see what happens. I think because it's async, we may need to do that. But we'll find out. So we're going to call search for Pokemon. Search for Pokemon will then go to this address with the ID we provide in the text field. And then if this is found, it will return the found Pokemon and display it here. So let's go back to that terminal. Stop it, start it again. Wait for it to finish building. Yeah, Pokemon.id is never assigned to, that's fine. What we'll do is we'll say that should remain null. It won't affect anything just yet. So Pokemon search should now no longer do the weather report lookup. I'm going to say 1. I'm going to hit search. It's going to go to the server. It fell over immediately because it isn't actually adding the ID. Interesting. Let's get rid of that. Okay. So it's bound to the Pokemon ID. I wonder why it's not reading it properly. This is distressing. Okay. Let's see what we're doing here. OnGet Pokemon ID, pass that in. OnGet Pokemon. OnGet Pokemon is a func string, which points to this one. That's a little distressing. Okay, we may have to look into how things are binded or bound in a moment. We're binding this, so can we do? But oh, okay, maybe we can't do bind because it's already there. Let's have a look. Nope. All right. So Blazor bind text input, just input to variable. Now, what will happen is these kinds of things happen all the time. I'm still learning new Blazor. So let's go have a look at the Blazor documentation. So input at bind input value, input at bind input value, code input value needs to be a nullable string. Is it a nullable string? It is. Okay, so let's have a look. Input element value to, so it's binding this input to the C# input value field. Fantastic. The text box is updated on the UI when the component is rendered, not in response to changing the field's property or value. That's fine. Since components render themselves after event handler code executes, field and property updates are usually reflected in the UI immediately after an event handler is triggered. Okay, so I may be doing my input value stuff incorrectly. In the following example, binds the input value property to the second input element's value on change attributes. So there's a label with an input of input value. We've got another label, input value on change, set the value. Okay. Wait, how was I doing it before then? This one. Random Pokemon search. It grabs the value and that'll be it. Okay. So there's two ways that we could do this. One is to go string ID. Instead of doing Pokemon ID, do ID. And then this says, hey, I don't have any values. Well, now you do. So what's happening here? What doesn't it like? Possible null ref. That's fine. I'll ignore that in a moment. So my understanding is when we change this text value, this binding does not update down here automatically. It only updates when an event happens, when I trigger an event that tells it update these values. But when I click this button, it should then grab the latest value and pass it in. So we'll find out. So let's, again, we're using Rider as a rather expensive text editor, but that's fine. I don't mind. It's because I've probably got something incorrectly set up on this machine. Yeah, we've got some warnings, don't worry about it. I'm going to refresh that. We're going to watch this for when the error happens. I'm going to say search for Bulbasaur because I know that the Pokemon with the ID of 1 is Bulbasaur. I know that the chunks either side of this work, but it's this bit in the middle, right? Is this going to work? No, it's not. So it reports a cause error, but that's because we've done a search for nothing in the ID place. So let's have a look. Unchange event args input value equals string. Okay. When the bind theory component is rendered, the value of the HTML demonstration input element comes from the input value property. When the user enters a value in the text box changes elements focus, the on change element is fired. Okay. So this is saying on input event is triggered, unlike the on change event. Right. Okay. Maybe we could do this. So this is saying when we've bound this value to this input, but we want the value to change whenever we change the input of that text box. So let's try this instead. So let's say, so we're saying bind on an event called on input. As soon as I type anything into that text box, an event will be fired, which updates the value of this string. So to reflect what I've typed in. Now, if we were using a full debugger with all of the debugging experience properly, we'd be able to see this, but we're doing it the hard way. That's not a problem. You won't have to do this when you are doing Blazor stuff. Oh my goodness, it fell over straight away. Okay, so that's not how we do it. Whatever that is apparently not how we do it. Let's get rid of this. Pokemon ID. Maybe we need to do it that way. I don't know. I don't know, friends. I'm just seeing whether this works. I wonder if perhaps if I just check something. I'm just going to take a short break and check something on my other screen. So if you would please bear with me. Okay, so the thing that I was checking was working. Okay, that's fine. So what we've done, all that we did, I checked something on my other screen, I haven't changed this, is we've kept the bind event, but we've removed the call and passed in the value. We've removed the call and passing in the value. We're just using that value from here. And then we rebuilt. So let's see if we get the same error. It's still an error. I wonder if perhaps that on bind doesn't do what we think it does. Let's put this back to how it worked before. Multiple options select with input elements. No, that's not what we want. Select elements, format strings. Come back to all of this in a moment. Just make sure it's actually running so that we don't get that reload thing. Yep, that's working. It's still sending without the text. Okay, so let's say it's not null. If string is null or white space, Pokemon ID, return. That way we don't start sending the Pokemon API loads of requests that don't work and then get kicked off. Let's keep refreshing this until it starts. There we go. So this time what we're going to do is we're going to send search. It isn't actually going to do the thing. We're going to put some values in. It isn't actually doing it. Okay. So now we know that it's not binding properly. Bind value event. Okay, let's try this then. So this is how we set it from code side, but we don't want to do that. Two-way binding, here we go. bind username, string username, Bradley. Okay, a bind attribute will synchronize the value of the input field, but it doesn't seem to be doing so. It does it. So we've got the situation where it's binding one way from the code. So I'm doing this, right? From code land up to markup land. But what we want is we want two-way binding. So if I set this to Steve, and then we restart, because I'm hard coding it, the value will always be Steve, which will give us an error when we call the Pokemon API, but that's fine. When this loads, it will doesn't say Steve. Interesting. Okay. Maybe it no longer needs to be nullable. So it definitely doesn't need to be nullable anymore. I would have expected Pokemon ID. We're setting it there. So we've got an input that is type text that is bound to the value of Pokemon ID. Pokemon ID is hard coded to the word Steve. So unless I've done something wrong, I'd have expected the input box to say Steve. It's not saying it. Maybe because it's private? I'm not expecting that to be the case. Not so interested in that just yet. That's what we want. We want the bind value attribute event. Maybe it needs to not be text. Maybe that's the problem. Let's try this. So all we've done is remove the private from the field variable. Yeah, I bet that's it. I bet that's it. I bet if we take that out. So let's just put that back. So I'm expecting when we run this, it should say Steve in that text box. It doesn't say it. We can see the value here. Input bind username. You know, let's just as a test. This may be old Blazor that they're using in this example. All right. I'm going to say private, whoops, string, is it username? I can't remember now. Username. And then what I'm going to do, get rid of that call, and get rid of this method, just to make things easier to read. So we want something like that to happen. Go. So we've got two inputs. Okay, that's fine. So we can do that. H4, and the value is username. So what I'm expecting is when I type into this text box, we should see something next to it with whatever I'm typing. If so, we'll use that one. Yeah, that's the one. Right, okay. So we want bind. There we go. And we want to bind it on the input. So then, no, we don't need to bind it on the input. We'll go Pokemon ID, just as our debug stuff. We'll get rid of the name. I know what we did there. I was a Wally. Anyone watching is probably screaming out, Jamie, you've done it wrong. And I know exactly what I did. I shall show you in a moment. This is the problem with copying code directly from an old version of a framework to a new version of a framework. So let's just make sure this works. So what we should have is a value, and then it should automatically echo that value back out. So it's already set to Steve. There you go. That will have to do. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Because we didn't give me a second. Bind value on input. I wanted to see it debugging as we went along. So let's get rid of that because we don't need to. Actually, well, it's gone now. I was going to say thank you to whomever wrote that article. I do apologize. So we should see Steve in the box and Steve underneath, and we'll go like this. It updates as we type. Right. So The problem was, let me get rid of that. The problem was, let's talk about this first before we just move on. Right. In old Blazor, you use the bind attribute. Let's get rid of all of those. Use the bind attribute. In new Blazor, modern Blazor, use at bind hyphen value. So we'll get rid of the debugger. We don't need that. Get rid of that. Search for Pokemon doesn't exist. So let's just tidy this up a little bit. Okay, so because old Blazor used bind, bind isn't a Blazor attribute anymore. The Blazor attribute is bind value. We are saying we want to bind whenever we type in. Yeah, why not? Well, let's update the value every time we type it. This time, when we boot the application, what's going to happen is as we type into this input field, whatever we type will have its value bound to this variable, and then when we click the button to search, we should be able to send that to the server, to the API, the Pokemon API. So it's currently set to Steve. I'm going to type in 1. I'm going to hit search. I want to see this, so I want to see if it fails. Look at that. Look at that, everyone. It sent it. So can I actually, I'm going to copy that. I want to see whether we can still search by a name. It's currently set to Steve. Bulbasaur. Bulbasaur. Yes. Okay. So we can actually search by name. Awesome. Right. But what we actually want to do is we want to change the way we've done this. This is not a problem. What I want is for the search function to always be displayed. Right? I always want it to be displayed. Let's get rid of that. So it doesn't matter about whether we couldn't find one or not. We always want to search. So all of this here is my search component. So why don't I build a component? We've got shared. Okay. Yeah, let's create a shared thing called a search. Oh, it needs to be a .razor file. Okay. Just create a file. Search. Whoops. Search component. I think I'll just call it search.razor. Okay. We may have to do a lot more than this to get it to work as an extendable component. Let's see, layout component base. So it inherits layout component base. Let's zoom in a little. Inherits layout component base. We'll do that in there. Excellent. We'll leave the bindings for now because it's gonna fall over. Maybe we can pass in the search survey prompt. Here we go. Parameter title. Right. So we need some code. So I'm just going to copy this. How we can supply parameters. So search. I'm going to say code parameter called Pokemon ID. And we're actually going to pass in a parameter. Whoops. Of the public. I suppose a func that we want to search for. So let's have a look how we did it previously. So we passed in a func of string to task on get Pokemon. So we'll call it that. Oh gosh. So many windows running. Parameter func to string on get Pokemon. We're going to call it search for Pokemon. So now this is kind of happy. Or is it? Search for Pokemon. Can it resolve the method? Okay. Because my method will not return anything. Let's go do Pokemon ID. It's probably happier about that. Sorry, just give me one moment. I'm just going to put some tunes on. I've got a local Jellyfin server which plays loads of music. So if I show you, this is my Jellyfin server. This is running on a Raspberry Pi on my computer, and it has all my music on it. So that paused. So then I needed to start that playing something new. Let's just close all of these. So it's happy with those. That's fine. Search for Pokemon does not. I tell you what. Yeah, okay. Rename that. What's it want? Doesn't matter. That'll do. Okay. Okay. So I've got a search component that I can pass into the screen and give it the Pokemon ID and the search for Pokemon. Now, Pokemon ID doesn't need to be a parameter because it will exist within here only. So let's not pass it in as a parameter. Let's create it as a local variable. Let's call it a private string Pokemon ID because we won't need it outside of this view. So what we'll do, why don't we see if we can call it search. Haha! But it wants a parameter for when we call, I believe I should be able to just do that. So this is inserting that search component we just created and passing it a reference to search for Pokemon, which is the method we've created, which takes in a string. Now, in this case, it doesn't, but it will in a moment. Takes in a string and returns a task. So let's get rid of this because we don't need it. This is going to complain. No, it isn't. We've got string Pokemon ID. There we go. So what's happening here is we're saying add this component on screen and pass this in as a parameter. If we go to the search component, we've got a parameter called search for Pokemon, which is a function which takes a string and returns a task. If we look at this, we have a search for Pokemon, which takes a string and returns a task. So we should be able to pass this method through to the search. In fact, we don't need it there, but we'll leave it here for now. So let's go like this. We'll tidy this up as and when we need to, but I feel like we could tidy it up further. If this works, we could tidy it up a little better. Wait for it to finish building. Nope, it fell over. Search for Pokemon attackable element. Search requires a value. Okay, tell you what we'll do. Why don't we change this slightly? So this takes in a string and returns a Pokemon. Pokemon search.Pokemon. We'll move things around in a moment, but instead of doing that, we'll do we even need to pass in that? No, we don't. Let's do this. Search for Pokemon. So what we're going to do, nope. We want that. Pokemon search.Pokemon. We don't want web request methods. What are you talking about? We want HTTP get from JSON, which is coming from HTTP client. So we need to inject an HTTP client. There we go. Get rid of this. This is saying we can await. Excellent. So what we'll do is instead of that, return this, and this then becomes a task of Pokemon. Oh, but Pokemon doesn't exist. Pokemon search. Pokemon does. We will throw new exception. Cannot search for with supplied a Pokemon ID. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to pass in the Pokemon. Aha. Yes. So this takes in a parameter. Public Pokemon, no, one of those. Search results. Get set. And this is like, oh, what's this? Pokemon. Oh, gosh. One of those. Yeah. So then this is going to be, we're going to pass in that. Then we won't need this anymore. So then the search function will do the search for us. It will be entirely wrapped up in doing the search. Nothing else will happen inside that search. That's the idea. Let's see if we can do this. If it works, I will talk you through what it's done. Okay, so it compiled and it built. Does not mean it will work. But what we're doing is we are saying this page is now just dealing with displaying those search results. The Pokemon search just displays the search results. What it does is it has a search component that deals with returning the that deals with searching for that Pokemon stuff, which is just the enter the ID of the Pokemons. Here's does the values, it does the searching, and then what it does is it sets the value. So we don't want return await. What we want is we want to set search results is equal to that. Nullable. Why would that be nullable? Doesn't matter. Let's just return it for now. Doesn't matter. Let's see what happens. I'm not expecting this to work, everyone, but let's see what happens. So we go to Pokemon search. We hit that. And the search doesn't show up. Interesting. Why didn't that work? Interesting. Interesting. The search isn't displaying. Okay, let's say we don't take it in as a parameter. And let's say all we do is we don't return. We do, yeah, we just call it. It's like, hey, you're supposed to return something. No, we don't. We'll just call it. We'll just call it. We won't do anything with it. We want to make sure that it displays and it does its thing. So let's get rid of that. This is interesting. This is interesting. I wonder what I'm doing wrong. I suppose we'll never find out. Okay, run this. There we go. We've got the search function. I'll load this up and I'll type in 1. It's going to do the search. Excellent. Fantastic. It gets the value back. We haven't got full debugging, but let's not worry about that too much. So why is it that when I assign that to... Oh, ho, 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 ho. Right. Found Pokemon. There we go. So found Pokemon exists where? I wonder why it doesn't think it exists. Ah, we don't have a parameter, that's why. Oh gosh. We will get there, we will get there. So we've got a parameter called search results. If I do this, maybe I can do search results equals found Pokemon. There we go. So what we're going to do is in this search, we're saying pass me the parameter to store this value in. Search results. Well done, Jamie. Results equals that. Search results equals this, which then sets that value on that public parameter, which then, because we're passing it in, should then be reflected here. We'll find out. Pokemon is always null. That's fine. Let's run it. Let's see what happens. The worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work. And if that's the worst thing that happens, we'll go back and we'll edit it. This is, I think this is good because this is showing how I am learning Blazor. Okay, so we saw that it went and did the thing, but it didn't change this value here. So perhaps I wonder if we can return from here. Or perhaps the search should have the search result in there. Yeah, okay. Right. Okay, in that case then, let's go full screen so we can search. Where is it? Survey root search.razor. Okay. Add a new file. We're going to say search results. Oh, results. Blazor. Okay. What we're going to do here is the search results Razer is the thing that's going to live inside of here. Search results. This is the search results. Let's do paragraph. Just scroll that in so you can see it. So we're going to have inside of the search, we're going to have the search results. We no longer need this here because we're going to take this out. Take all of that out. We don't need to pass that parameter in. This no longer needs to be a parameter. It's going to be a private thing. Yep, private thing, and then set it to that. This, haha, app code. I don't care about that. Thank you, Razer. Thank you, Ryder, but that's fine. I'm going to say parameter public Pokemon. Yep. Result search results get set. Maybe this should be nullable. Okay, this is the search results. I'm going to go if results equals null. Yeah, P. Oh gosh. Couldn't find a Pokemons. Yo. I don't. Just stop it. Get rid of the at because we don't need it. We already have an at there. Else. Whoops. Else. Yo G. Found a Pokemons. The Pokemons. Yeah. I found was. It's okay. Give me a second. Excuse me, folks. Hello again, everyone. Okay, so where were we? Ah, yes. So, results dot, should have a dot name. Okay. Okay, that's fine. Don't worry about it, Ryder. It's fine. I promise you it's fine. So what we're doing now instead is the search then creates the search results. So in our Pokemon search, we are literally just going to get rid of all of this. So our Pokemon search component just contains, it sets the title of the page. It shows you that it is a Pokemon search. It then has this paragraph tag displaying, containing information about what the actual search is and what it does. And then it adds the search component, right? So then that way we can see the search component. Now, unfortunately, the way that I've designed this, if this works, the search component has a direct, it contains the search results, right? But we're not actually passing the results in. So we need to pass those results in. So we're going to say search results. Can we do that? Oh gosh. Results equals search results. Haha. Okay, that's fine. So now we're saying, show me the search controls, then show me the results. Okay. We're going to then go allow us to do the search. If this is null, the search results shouldn't show us anything. But if the results aren't null, it should show us the name of the Pokemon we found. So let's stop and start again. I don't know whether this is going to work, everyone. We'll find out in a moment. Let's refresh this. I want to keep this open so we can see whether it does the actual search. This is the search results. Couldn't find a Pokemon's. One, go. Hey, Yo G found a Pokemon's. It works. It works. Oh, that's amazing. We need to tidy it up, but it does the actual thing. Fantastic. So what we'll do, this is why in this app here, right, random Pokemon search just does the search, right? And that's why we had a separate thing that maintains the entire state. So what we're going to do is we're going to tidy this up ever so slightly before we do anything, right? We're going to move this public class Pokemon out to shared. I'm going to call it models. And we're going to, whoops. Oh gosh, I've just excluded it. Undo exclude, yes. There we go. Add new class. Pokemon. I don't think it was called Pokemon, but there you go. Yep. Okay. So then I need to update these references. Yep. And then this one needs to be updated. Okay. Right. So we no longer need the code on that page, actually. That simplifies this page. We don't need any code there. Let's move the code out of there. All right. Okay. So we've got the menu, going to get rid of that. Survey prompt, get rid of that. Main layout, get rid of that. So the difference between this code and this code is that this code here has a state which represents the entire thing. Whereas this code has a number of models that are passed left, right, and center. So I wonder whether we can recreate this over there. Let's have a look. Search in progress. Applied ID is valid. Components receive change notifications. There is an action. It's called on change. Let's have a look. Pokemon search has search. Could I have whatever granularity you want? On change, we probably don't need to do that. Receive HTTP instance from DI. We've got the DI that's being yeah, okay. Yep, it's HTTP instance. Get Pokemon then exists on the state engine rather than on the, yeah, let's see if we can recreate this over here. So the reason that I'm trying to recreate the other one over here is that I don't want the search component itself to do the search. I want some centralized state management, if I can, to do the search for me. Because do we want the search to do the validation? Probably not. Do we want some centralized service to do the validation? Probably. Because what if I type in Jeff, right? Should we be able to search by that? The API we're wrapping around allows us to do that, but do I want us to do that? Probably not. But I'm happy with this as it is. we're getting there, right? We're getting to a point where it's working. So let's have a look at the nav menu. Home, counter, fetch data. I wonder if, what is this? So this uses fetch data, rich list. So what is this? Open iconic. Open iconic. I wonder if we can get an icon from here. Is there a search? Filter by name. Search. Nothing. Oh no, wait. Nope. Look. Glass. Magnifying - glass. OI magnifying glass. Okay. So what I'm doing. Oh, I'll take this whole thing. Do. Can we get this to tidy up? Probably can just by doing this. Thank you. Magnifying -glass. And we don't want it to do fetch data, we do Pokemon's search. What did we say the URL for it was? This one. Nope. You can see how many windows I've got open, can't you? Pokemon search. Right. Okay. So we'll stop and start that. We've got it working. I'm happy with the way it works. I would usually be using source control, but I'm happy with the way this works. Let's do a refresh. Pokemon search. It's still working. We've got Pokemon search there. Search. Gonzaka Bulbasaur. Excellent. Okay. I am going to actually get rid of those because I don't want those in my nav menu now. Look at that. So if we go home, go here, one. This is the search results. Couldn't find a Pokemon's search. Excellent. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is see if we can sort of wrap this up. So I'm going to close that, wrap this up into some kind of shared service, state, whatever. Maybe that models needs to be outside of shared. Yeah, I think it should be outside of shared. Let's move it there. It will do the update for me. Remap all of the things. WASM shared models. This then becomes, ooh, that's really far out. Nope, no. What I want to do is I want to use Rider to do that for me. Move that and update all the references. Excellent. So we have a model. Maybe we should have a state object. Yeah, let's do that. Let's collapse that down. We'll have a state.cs. Excellent. So we've got a class called state. Let's have a look at how this one works. It has a search result. It has whether a search is in progress, and it has whether its applied ID is true. That's fine. I mean, this is just C# code, so this should just be able to go boop like that. Run my model. Excellent. It's probably going to complain that it should be nullable. Doesn't matter. Okay. Yeah, let's take that. I wonder. The only problem with the window manager inside of that one, of PopOS, is if I do this, you can't see. If I Alt Tab, it Alt Tabs between the different types of windows. So because I have two instances of Rider running, it sees them both as the same, almost like the same instance of Rider, groups them together. So do we want to do that? So is this program.cs? Is there an HTTP client that is injected in? And if so, where is it? Interesting. We probably don't want to inject an HTTP client. We could, no, we still want to inject one. But where's it being injected from? Interesting. All right. Let's see where PokeState is used. Nope. That was the constructor. Main. Inject one of these. Let's add it and see what happens. The worst thing that could happen is that we inject that. It doesn't like it. So give me that. It's called it was called PokeState. Yeah, let's call it PokeState actually. PokeState. Oh, it's no longer called that now. Yeah, let's fix that. PokeState. 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 Na. Okay. Unchange invoke. I don't think that this is how it now works. We'll find out, right? If it doesn't like it, then that's fine. Threads. HTTP. It's not called get JSON async anymore, is it? It's called, let's close this and this. It's called get from JSON async. Here we go. Oh, what? Net HTTP JSON. Let's have a look. I don't just want to include a library if it's not the right thing to do. Okay. HTTP is just the HTTP client. So HTTP client. What is it wanting me to do? Okay, let's just inject that. Let's see what happens. That's got a potential to call back as null. That's fine. Let's have a look over here. Pokemon ID validator. Holy moly. Right, yep, let's make this into a static class. It's a bit of a static class, but that's fine. Folder, directory, helpers. What's it called? Pokemon ID validator. Pokemon ID validator. Validator. Right, we'll have another look through this in a moment. So this takes in, let's first of all, do you mean? Yes, I do. Right. So this will take in a Pokemon ID. Used to validate a Pokemon ID that is both an integer falls within a certain range. We will likely need to increase this because a new version of Pokemon has come out recently. I don't know anything about it. Let's find out whether we need to increase that. I don't know. So what this does is it says if it's null or white space, if the string passed in is null or white space, return false. It did not validate. If we cannot parse it as an int, return false. And if when we parse it, it's greater than 0 and less than or equal to the maximum value, return true. Otherwise, if they've typed in -1, we can't do that. Maybe we should extend this to then wrap it round and invert it, but that doesn't really matter. So we've got the PokeState actually dealing with that. Only search if it's valid. I'm going to leave that as it is. We're going to leave this as it is. On change. Excellent. Let's see if we can inject this into here. Inject PokeState. Will it work? It's pointing at it. That's good. Let's get rid of this. Whoops. Get rid of this and get rid of this. So this has injected that in. We've gone to the on init. It says status has changed. Okay, so where is my... What doesn't it like about that? Oh, fair enough. Code protected override protected. What we got on init? Try that. Uninitialized. We have to manually call status change because Blazor's events do not yet support. Okay, well maybe we don't need to change that anymore. On change equals state has changed. Plus equals state has changed. That's my state in here. And my state.on change is this one. They do now support async. That is supporting async. So state injecting that PokeState, and we're calling it state, right? That's it. Inject that as that. We're saying state dot on change plus equals state has changed. So we're saying when the state has changed, when the global Pokemon state has changed, call this on change action. Excellent. Okay, so in this, so on get Pokemon, on state get Pokemon, right? So then this Pokemon search now has a task. Ha 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 ha. Right, search. We're no longer going to do the search in here. We're going to pass that out. So on get Pokemon, and then in here where we call the search, that way we can separate things out. We're going to say on get Pokemon equals state on get Pokemon. I don't know whether any of this is going to work. We have to wire it all up and see, right? So let's just do that. We're replacing one thing. Oh, look at that. The shared search on get Pokemon should be static. Oh gosh. Can you have a static async task? I wonder whether you know you can't. Why should it be static? Oh, hang on. Should be public on the search.razer. Yes, because it's a parameter. Of course, can't set a parameter if it's private. Lots of errors will come. Lots of warnings. Sorry, we'll come back to those later. If this still does the search and displays it, then we know that what we've done is we've swapped something out and it's working. Don't think it's going to work though, because we're going to keep this loading. I think, yeah, an error has occurred. It's not going to tell me what the error is. Oh my goodness, look at this. Cannot provide a property state on type that. There is no registered service for PokeState. Okay, so we need to inject it. So what we need to do is we need to say program.cs. Yes, we basically need to copy this line here. Builder.add service scoped. We don't want to do that. We want to say new Pokemon service. New PokeState. Now PokeState wants what? PokeState wants the HTTP client instance. So it wants that scoped service. So var client equals new, oh, not ner. We want the same HTTP client to be injected in. So we want that. So this is saying whenever we want an HTTP client, give me that HTTP client, but also PokeState wants the same HTTP client because we're going to move the call to actually do the search from the component into that shared state object. So let's see what happens. The only downside to doing lots of dependency injection is errors happen at runtime. So if I can do this, okay, were we able to do the search? We still did the search, that's fine. But then when we finished the search, we didn't do anything with those new results. That's fine. Yes, that's fine. Okay, so we can get rid of this because the search is happening on that state object now, not on the results. So we can get rid of this. We'll do something different in a moment. Search, and then we can do a search results. Do that, and it's like, oh, what? We should have on the state, we should have a search result, Pokemon search result. So then we should be able to go results, state, Pokemon search result. We'll talk through the difference that we've just done there in a moment. Pull this up so we can see when it does the search. One. Search. Yes. Okay, so now what we've done is we've taken the search component and the search results component and separated them out completely. That way, the search component does not rely on the search results component, and the search results component no longer relies on the search component. They are completely separate. They now have a shared dependency in the state. So this component and this component can now evolve separately from each other without having to include each other, which is brilliant. Can actually get rid of that and that. Yep, because neither of, that's the other thing as well. Neither of these now require the HTTP client, right? So we're good with that as well. That means that we no longer need that HTTP client to be able to display or get anything. That reduces the number of requirements and dependencies that each of these individual components have, meaning that they are now separate from each other. Fantastic. Okay, what we also want to do is, in the original design, we had a gray out zone. Now the gray out zone, does that actually exist? Is that one that I created? It is. A gray out zone allows us, oh my goodness. Okay, so this was specifically for SemanticUI. I would need to figure out how to recreate this in Bootstrap, but let's do it. Let's see if we can, right? So that has a search in progress. So let's see if we can create this. Okay, so we have a gray out zone. So that, well, I'm not going to call it gray out zone anymore. I'm going to call it loading zone. So shared, I'm going to create a new file called loading zone.razor. I'm going to dump this in here. Right. Now, okay. Lots and lots and lots of things to center a notched circle. So we have a child content and whether it is searching. So we need, I don't think we should call it functions anymore, just call it code. So we are going to go code, have these two things. Excellent. Now then, what we need to do is I need to be quite clever with this. I'll zoom in so you can see. What I need to do is I need to do bootstrap notched circle. I wonder if I don't want to have to use, oh, what was the icon library this uses? It is, maybe there's one in here. OI, open iconic. Open iconic. Maybe there's a notched circle in here. I'm only using this because this is already in the code base, right? Timer, perhaps? Time. Nope. Clock. Yeah, clock will do. It will look really rather weird, but let's use clock. I wonder whether... These are just SVGs, right? I don't have to pull in the whole of font awesome. I don't want to have to do something really clever with let's do search for weight. Doesn't matter. We want something, so across circle. Circle. Let's grab this one. Circle X. Circle X. Okay, right. OI. OI. Oh my goodness. Why don't I just copy it? Let's do that. I don't want it as a span. Right. So what I want is I want that circle X in this. Did it always have an I on the end? Yes, it did. Okay. Go with it. CSS only. Rotate. I'm not a front-end developer, and what I want to do is I want to have the icon continually rotating whilst we're searching, right? Rotate, transform function. Oh my goodness. Okay. Rotated. That rotates it once. I want a rotation animation that is in, okay, CSS only rotation animation. There we go. I want it to constantly rotate whilst it is, whilst we're waiting for it to load. Holy moly. Okay, there's lots of WebKit stuff. WebKit animation 4 seconds, linear infinite. WebKit spin 4 seconds, linear infinite. And then let's have a look at this code snippet. That's what we want. Okay. I could just grab a loading spinner, but I don't want to do this. Add a new style sheet. Are these all CSS files? They are. Loading zone should be loading zone.razer.css. There we go. That hides it in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go loading spinner, add those. And I'm just going to take these. I know that what I'm doing is I'm just copy pasting. First off, I'd like to call out and say thank you to Stack Overflow user Giona. So thank you very much. If this works, even if it doesn't work, thank you very much for pointing me in the right direction. So what I'm hoping to do is I want this loading spinner to constantly spin whilst it's on screen, right? Get rid of all of this. Yeah, I'm missing some stuff. If it's loading, what I want to do is I want to put this stuff in the center. So I want to, with Bootstrap, center that. So again, I'm not Bootstrap center div. So I'm not a Bootstrap expert, so I am happy to look these things up. So that is a Flexbox container, fair enough. It's got a P2 all the way around it. That's inline, fantastic. So that's D inline flex. So that's that with still with the P2 all the way around it. Okay, I think I kind of understand flex a little bit. Justify, here we go. Justify content, deflex, justify content center. That's what we want. And it's spelt in that lovely way that it's not British English, but that's totally fine. So we're saying this whole content should be justified to the center, right? I want a spinner, and I want it to have the spinner, then to say paging Professor Rook. I'm going to say div class. This is probably not going to work. Row div class. Whoops. Call Kiol. Nope, that's 3 times I've done it now. I can type, honest. Everyone who's watching, I can type. Then we're going to take this, put it here. Then we're going to take this. And go H3, paging Professor Rook. Get rid of these contents here. We'll tidy that up. Okay, so the loading zone is going to be a wrapper around some other content. Yep. And what we're going to do is we're going to say when we are searching, when searching is happening, just display the loading spinner. When searching is not happening, show whatever we pass in as child content. So what we need to do is we need to go to loading zone. And we need to go, what is it called? Is it called child content? Yeah, just child content. Let's see how we did it before. Main searching equals searching progress. That's right. And then inside of that, you see, so child content is added underneath it. Child content is a special thing that exists within this, right? So that's our component. We can add any other components we want as child components. So we just do this. So hopefully, if I've done this correctly, I probably haven't. Oh, we need to wait for it to finish building, and it didn't build. Shared child content should be public. Okay. Ah, yes. We need to set that to public. We need to set this to public, otherwise we can't set it. Because otherwise it sets these. Yeah, okay. Okay. Let's see what happens. It's gotten past the build. It's getting to the point where it's running. I'm going to type in 1. This is the search result. See, because that's centered now. If we inspect that, we can see under all of these, that is The deflex justify content center. Okay, search. Oh, did you see that? Did you see that? That was amazing. Oh my goodness, my p tags aren't showing in rows anymore, but that's fine. If I do that again, you can see, did you see the little spinner spinning? Okay, so in order to test that, well, not test it, but in order to show it actually searching, let's slow the search down, right? So what we'll do, we'll go back to the pokey state, right? Let's go full screen. Go back to the pokey state. And what we'll do is when this finishes, before we stop the search in progress, we'll do thread.sleep 2,500. So before we tell Blazor, hey, everything is finished and we've finished searching, wait for 2.5 seconds. That way you'll be able to see the little spinner. I need to fix the entire view of this, but I'm not a visual designer, right? I'm not a UI builder. I'm not a front end person. I'm doing this specifically from memory. So let's have a look. Can you see? Can you see? Can you see? It's spinning. Do it again. For some reason, it's clickable. Is it clickable? I wonder why. Oh, well. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to do one more thing and make things a lot better. We're going to create a component for centering things, right? Because if you remember in our loading zone, we've got this thing that centers everything, right? Why have that there? Why not just have it everywhere? So let's create another component. I'm going to call it center.Razer. I would have called it centerizer, but that's probably not the right thing to call it. Center that. And we close the div. This is just showing how you can just add as much. You can have components all the way down. Let's do that. Okay. And then we need to call child component within here. There we go. And then what we can do is we can take this off of there. Oh, gosh. Messed that up, didn't I? Oh, what I wanted to do is that. Okay, so the loading zone itself can be centered, but we want to center the whole thing. So why don't we center the whole page? Center. Right? And then we'll go like this, because the components don't have to be, the things that are put into a component like this don't have to be a component themselves. They can just be random HTML. So what we're going to do is going to center everything on screen. Look at that. It's horrid. It's absolutely horrid. Oh my goodness. But that's because what we've done is we've said everything needs to be centered and everything needs to be in that one flex item. But that's fine. Line item center. What does the line item center do? Let's find out. See, now we're inside of a component. We don't need to actually mess around with where are we? Main, article content, justify content center. This is just a line items center. Do we need to justify or anything? No. Okay, you're saying that I just need to do a line item center. So let's find out. Deflex a line item center. What's that look like? Pretty much the same thing. I like it. I like it. So what we'll do is we will not do that. We will say center. Whoops. Call that on it. We are likely going to be doing this the most horrendous way possible. I'm going to center this. And then we'll center those things as well, just to see what it looks like. We're increasing this dev loop at some point, I promise. So what should happen is this should be centered, then this should be centered underneath each other. I'm assuming. Hey, look at that. Okay. So what we do is we do that. Like, I'm not a front-end dev. I don't quite understand Flex myself, but we're getting somewhere with it. Oh gosh. Right, okay. So search component has a row and a column. Maybe it doesn't need rows and columns. Because they align things with inside it. Okay. Line items. Wrap. We don't bother about wrap. No, I tell you what. Why don't we not center that bit? I'm not a front-end developer. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm happy to say that I don't know what I'm doing. I'm happy with how this is turning out so far, everyone. Right, let me do this. These are broken, but that's fine. Search. It's still doing the paging, Professor Oak, and then it's still going to say, search results, I found a Pokemon. Excellent. Okay. So what I need to do is I need to find that string. Get rid of that because I don't need it. I've more than likely done this centering thing completely wrong. Completely wrong. Oh, absolutely completely wrong. But you know what? I don't mind. Flex is probably not what we want, but that's fine. Let's just go with the layout. Can we go with the grid? The grid, right. I wonder whether auto layout equal length 1. Ah, that's why. Okay, so those columns are equal lengths apart, which then makes the row one element. Because the row is one element, it centers the one element. Right. There we go. That's what we want. Justify content center. So we don't want one of two, one of two, one of two. That's what we want, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else. Sorry, I'm unintentional ignorance there. I'm sorry, everyone. Right. So we want a container. So in this search, we want a div class. Oh gosh, container. Within the container, we want a row which justifies the content in the center. We don't. Yes, we do. Right. I've got a div class. Oops. Row justify content center. And then div class call. I'm going to say 8. Put the paragraph inside of it, the search key, and then inside the container make another row. This time we have the 6, and we have the input. I will zoom in a moment, folks. There we go. Hey there, everybody. And then we go. Then we do another call. And then we'll grab this button, place it there. Really, what I shouldn't have done is deleted the original stuff, commented out. But there we go. Is the search centered? It's not. So I'm just trying to make this a little easier to read, a little more beautified to use. Which is yeah, how do I put it? It's that is search, that is not. Okay, so how about we do 4 on that one, 4 on that one. Div class call 2. An empty 2-column thing. 2 columns that shunt it across. So that's 8. Hey, we're getting there. We're getting there. So we're going to go 1. We're going to say paging Professor Oak. And then voila. Okay, right, we're getting somewhere. It's not going to be the most beautiful thing in the world, but we're getting somewhere. Search results. So the search results should not be p tags. And the loading zone shouldn't be like that either. We need a div class container. Whoops. Content center column. Copy that. Place it there. Take this. Again, I'm probably doing this in the most inefficient way possible, but it's a way that I've just learned how to do it. The great thing about development is you learn a way to do it and then continue to do that till you learn a better way. That's how I do it, but there you go. Okay, refresh that. Oh, why is it there? Container, row, justify content center, column 8. Just that one. Why are they over there? Loading zone container, row, justify content center, column. I probably need to do 8. Probably need to, yes. Because if you don't put a number, it guesses how big that column should be. So yeah, let's use it. Let's leave it at 8. We give it a number. We're getting somewhere. That's the important thing. Let's refresh that. Like I say, I'm not a UI developer. I'm guessing at these. I am, like I've said, likely doing this wrong. 1. Yeah, so it starts there. But what we want is for it to be in the center. Because it's 8, it will take that. So what's happening is, because I'm going to find it hard to draw on the screen, this is the entire space available, right? And I'm saying take 8/12 of it and make it centered, right? But the icon for this is likely only 1 column across. So let's do that. Let's do that. So I'm saying create a column that is create an area which is 1 column across and center it. Then create one that is 3 and center it. And we will get this working, everyone. Yeah, lots of errors, lots of warnings. I said earlier on we need to deal with those, and we will. Let's have a look. Oh, look at that. It's centered. Yes. Perhaps I could take this, place it here, make this column 4, get rid of this. Refresh that page, do a 1. What we'll do, go network, offline, hit search, right. Why can't I right click? It's just weird. Oh, because it's, yeah. Okay, search. What I need to do is in my state to help me with this. 1 second, 10 seconds. Add myself a 10-second loop here so that I could be fast enough at actually getting the. Okay. I'm not fast enough at grabbing this element and seeing why it's not centered. Huh? Oh, that's annoying. Why did that happen? It's like it locks the page up. Content center there isn't there. Maybe because there is a container around it. You know what? It doesn't matter. That'll do. It will do for now. Let's do, yeah, we'll leave that for now. Okay. So, go back to here. Excellent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look and see how this other one used to deal with. We have found the Pokemon we are looking for. So random Pokemon result takes in the Pokemon to display and a valid search ID. Random Pokemon result. The ID you supplied does not, that's if it's not valid. Ah ha ha. Right, valid search ID. Right. Valid search ID supplied state is valid. Right, okay. So that's what we need to do in get rid of these, all of these, and go to my results. So what we want is we want a parameter public bool search Pokemon no, search ID is valid. Now it gets it. Parameter. Excellent. Search ID is valid. If if it wasn't valid, not invalid. Excellent. Not valid, yo. But to be able to do that, when we call search results, we need to then pages, Pokemon search. Search ID is valid. Is state search supplied is valid. Supplied ID is valid. There we go. Okay, so if it's not valid, we'll say not valid. If the results are null, we'll say that. Maybe that needs to be an else if. Pokemon search result. If it's not valid, if it's not null, oh, if it's not equal to null. Interesting. And if it is equal to null, oh, reverse that, reverse that. Right, okay, so. Results are not, right again. If the results are not equal to null, then what we do is we create a container with a grid, create a row. We need it centered. Let's display the name. Right. Okay. So here, div class container, padding top by 2, I suppose. Let's give it a little space. Div, oh gosh, div class row. The other kind of row. Div class row, and then 2 column centered grid. So we say justify content center. Div class all 2, I suppose. Then we'll go at result. Should be result singular, not plural. But there you go. Okay, so what we need to do is in here, instead of saying not valid, we need to take this. We're going to take the ID supplied didn't seem to be valid. And then another row, another content. That could probably be a 4. Do you know what? Take this outside of there. So micro optimization. Again, shouldn't really be optimizing because I haven't finished building it yet. There we go. So now, regardless of which if we fall into, there'll be a container with a padding top around it. We've got a row and a column. Right, so row and column. So then this needs to be UL class list. We'll leave it as UL class list because I'm not sure whether that's the correct thing for it. Thanks, right up. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. So we'll fix that too. What we'll do is we'll make the Pokemon state, instead of having a, in the validate ID, instead of having a maximum value that's hard coded there, we'll do it in the state. So we'll go public int max Pokemon ID get set. We'll set it to 802 because we know it's 802. Max Pokemon ID. Take that out. Get rid of that so it's no longer got a default value. We always have to supply it. And then we're going to go in here. No, in the results. There are only... are we passing the state in? We're passing the result in. We need to pass the state in, presumably. Or is it because it's within the state? State, search results. Yeah. Max Pokemon ID equals state.max Pokemon ID. Now that's green because we don't have it as a parameter yet. Public int paste get set. My tunes have stopped in my other browser window. That means I've been going for almost 2.5 hours. Yep, 2.5 hours. There are only maximum Pokemon ID Pokemon. I'm going to go like this. I'm going to go like that. Nope. I need normal parens. Let's do max Pokemon ID plus 1. So this says, let's get rid of this. The 3 rules are, it must not be empty, it must be a positive integer with no decimal point, and it must be less than the maximum Pokemon ID plus 1, as there are only maximum Pokemon ID Pokemon. This maximum Pokemon ID is passed in here, and this is set manually, albeit, to 802. Let's have this as a private set. So we can set it in the constructor if we want. Yeah, okay, we'll just leave it at that. And then that way, when we validate, we pass in the maximum possible ID and we make sure that that is there. That way, we're only setting it once, we're using it all the other different places. So let's see how that looks. Don't think that's going to look good, but it's worth a shot, right? So the worst that could happen is that it doesn't work. And we already know that it kind of works. So what's the problem? Right, let's say Pokemon number 1. Paging Professor Oak. Maybe that needs to be wider than 4. That's why it's not. No, wait, hang on. If I, oh gosh, it's stopped working. Oh no. Oh no, there we go. Bulbasaur. Excellent. Just to, oh, of course, because I put into my Pokemon state this artificial wait of 10 seconds. Get rid of that. Zoom in a little bit so you can see it. Okay. Where's my paging Professor Oak? That's in my loading state. So I think it needs to be a span rather than I, so then it will be on the same line. I think that's the problem. I think. Again, I'm not a front-end engineer. If someone out there is saying, hey, this is wrong, please let me know. Nope, it still appears next to it. Why? Oh, ha 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 ha. There we go. Probably not a span. We probably want an I in that case. Yeah. So let's do that again. There we go. Did you see? Did you see? There we go. Excellent. I'd rather have something there. We can later on find an actual notched thing to display it. So, Pokemon results area. Results area. Why is that like that? Okay, fair enough, because we had some padding on it. That's not a problem. Okay, let's go back here. We should be able to row 2 word column, 2 word column, 2, 4, 6, 4, 8, 12. Okay, so we should be able to just recreate that row there and have the centered justified content center on it. Let's go like this. Place that there. So row, whoops. So row, and for each one we want a div class. I want a label on it. Yeah, that needs to be h2. So we know that that's the name of the Pokemon we're talking about. h2, thanks, right up. Do that. Now, results needs to be Pokemon to display. There we go. It likely means that my Pokemon search is broken. Pokemon to display. No, okay, that's fine. So weight, height, base experience. So let's copy this. Doesn't need to be 2, it needs to be 4, I believe. So let's copy it again. So what I'm trying to do here, everyone, is to have a row with boom, 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 3 items next to each other. So that's the weight, the height, and the base experience level. Are these things that, yeah, that's the, yeah, those are, yeah. Oh gosh. Base experience points. So then we should get a little bit more information about Bulbasaur this time. Paging Professor Oak. Look at that. Boom, boom, boom. Except we don't want them as column 4s. Maybe we do want them as column 3. 3. That doesn't look so centered now. Let's change this to 3. Call 4, call 3. I keep bashing the microphone. I do apologize, everyone. Call 3. Is it? No. Okay. Excuse me. It doesn't look it, but I think they are pretty much centered. Don't know whether 3, 6, 9. So we need another 3 in there, an empty one. Oh, excuse me. DevTail. These need to be 3, 3, 3. Div class 3. So there's an empty one ahead of it. Oh, no. 3, 6, 9. So then there's 3 left. That's not going to be centered. I can have them as 4, 2. Do them as 2. 2, 4, 6. Div. That's 3. I'm probably doing this manual adjustment that I don't have to do. Let's have a look. Try again. Try again. Let's check this a little better. Okay. 1. That didn't work, did it? Why not? I shouldn't really be doing this UI fixing in the dev loop. So I could do it inside the browser, but there we go. Oh, that'll do. That will do. It's not the best, but it will do. Okay, so we got it. We've got the weight, height, and experience level. Ordered types are the types ordered by T slot. Oh goodness. So that's a column centered grid, types 1 wide column. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Right. Do I have that in my model? Oh gosh, I keep clicking that button and I really don't need to. Right, not in the helpers, in the models, Pokemon, we've got just those first few things. We need this type. Oh gosh, and the type data, which is there. There we go. And then this needs to have a list of types. Yep, a list of types and some ordered types. So we can display the types in some kind of orderly fashion. There we go. It's like, oh, I don't know what a list is. Pull in that list. You can likely not see that because it's zoomed all the way out. I do apologize, everyone. And then we're going to order that by that. Move this type to its own file. And then close that because it's now unzoomed. Move that to that file. Yeah, you think about it for a second. Right, okay. So then in the results file, here we go. We are then going to take a new row, column, types. Okay, let's take this and copy paste it in. We will likely want padding top 2. Yeah. So row content justify padding top 2. Justify padding top 2. 2 column centered grid, get rid of that. Div class, just the word col. Close that col. Close that div. Close the div. There we go. And take this. This column needs to go inside of here. Sort that out. Get rid of the padding top off of that one. I don't think this is going to work, but let's see if it does. Let's have a look over there, checking on the time. 2 hours 42. Okay, so this isn't terribly exciting anymore, but let's find out. Paging Professor Rook. Types grass poison. Because then they call by itself. Equal width multi-row. Right. No, that's not what we want either. Ordering classes. Auto layout columns. 1 of 2, 2 of 2, 1, 2, 3. Coca-Cola, because they're equal width. We don't want that. What we want. So whatever that one is set to. Call 2. Okay. Excuse me. That's call 2. Call -1. Like I say, I'm not a front-end engineer. I'm sure that someone watching this is going, oh my goodness, I can't believe that you would do that. That's just nonsense. But here we go. Look at that. Yes. So it has 2 types, grass and poison. Yes. Maybe that shouldn't be an H2. That should be H1. H1, H2. That should perhaps be H4. H4. Right. Okay. So then this should be above it. There we go. So that should now have Bulbasaur, basic stats, bang, 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 types, bang, bang. What am I, Cactus Jack now? Okay. Bulbasaur, basic stats and types. What is the paging Professor Oak in? A loading zone. What's it set to? It's an H3. That seems to look bigger. Oh well, right. So we've got the types. Fantastic. We haven't got the sprites, but let's see if we can get the sprites. Sprites is just a single Pokemon sprite type. Holy moly. You probably can't see this, but it is a rather large class. just for its sprite. So we're gonna go public Pokemon sprite. Some Pokemon don't actually have sprites because they are 3D games. 3D games don't use sprites. So move that to its own file whilst they think about it. That's fine. Go out of here. It's just called sprites with a small s. Excellent. So we've got over here, if it has sprites, draw me some Pokemon images. I'm not going to do that just yet because that's loads of work. Because we have to we have to convert it. You see, from oh, interesting. We need to convert it. You see, from the SemanticUI into Bootstrap UI. Maybe I should just have grabbed the SemanticUI and just use that instead. In fact, no, because that would break everything else. So this is a right floated, left aligned 6 wide column with 2 things, the abilities and the stats data. So what does Pokemon abilities look like? It's quite literally a table. It's a H3 with a table. It looks like that. We could probably implement that real quick. So shared, say Pokemon abilities files. Pokemon abilities. Razer. Here we go. Paste that in there. Excellent. Table. What kind of tables do we have in Bootstrap? Yo, Devon, get the table. Do we have a striped? Striped. Here we go. Table, striped. All right. There we go. And then for each ability and abilities data, we haven't passed that in yet, but we will. It's no longer called functions. It is called further up. There we go. It's called code. Parameter list of ability. We don't have the ability anywhere, so we'd better get that. A public class ability. There we go. In the Pokemon type ability. We haven't got ability detail. We've got some ability detail. Name and a URL. Okay, so that's just maybe we could extract that out because I've seen that name URL elsewhere. Ability is called abilities and stats is called stats. All right, and here, do that. It's going to complain about this one, so we'll comment it out for now. Ability detail, ability detail. Get rid of that. Pull in ability from elsewhere. Just zoom in so you can see it. I've gone and written all of the class of the file without you actually being able to see it. Okay, so then we need to do the same. Get rid of these Pokemon stats. It's exactly the same, except it sends in stats and it has different. Okay, it's exactly the same, but it's slightly different. Okay, so we got a file, shared, add, file, Pokemon stats. Razer. Do that. Pokemon abilities needs to be, this needs to be public. I really don't like, one of the things I don't like about Rider, at least the way that I'm using it, is that you have to rezoom on every single file, which is rather annoying for if I'm doing something like this. Parameter list of stats data. Okay. parameter list of stats, stats student. That's not where that goes though, is it? Yeah, that's where it goes. Oh. That's better. List of stats. What do you mean? Stats doesn't exist. Models. Ah, because I haven't copied over the stats tab. Let me guess. The stats details is a name URL pair. Yeah, I can fix this. I can make this better. Stats details over here, and then the stats goes there. Get rid of those two. Stats is fine. What is a stats? It is one of these. Okay, so we created both of those two views. What we're going to do is we're going to recreate how to add them. So let's get rid of these, get rid of that, get rid of that. Okay. Get rid of all of these. Right floated, left aligned 6 wide column. So this would be thanks, Ryder. That really helped. So this would be div class col 06. Again, that really helped, Ryder. Thank you. And then we're going to say Pokemon abilities, Pokemon to display abilities. Let's do that. Okay. Stats data should be made public. I thought I did. Nope. Just removed its level. Okay. Right. This isn't going to look good, everyone. Good luck. Paging Professor Oak. Oh, look at that. That table isn't table striped, but look at that. Right. Stats. Table striped. Save. I may be able to just refresh that. I don't think I can because it's compiled, you see. Nope. Okay. That's fair enough. Oh, I'm loving this. Oh, HP is an effort of 0. That's not quite right, is it? That can't be right. Stats, name, effort, base stat. Really? Really? That seems a bit weird. Let's go with Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Venusaur. Venusaur, stats, 00001, base effort. I don't know how the stats for Pokemon work, so I mean, what I'll do is I'll get my brother to take a look at this. He's all about Pokemons, so he'll be able to do that. I wonder if there's a quick way to do proper case so that that shows up as a capital V, but there you go. Let's do Pikachu. Whoops. Does Pikachu work such? Because I've stopped it from working. It is not a number. Okay. 41. Oh, 42. The answer to life, the universe, and everything is Golbat. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. Excellent. I like it. I like it. We've gotten somewhere. And we're using this Pokemon API. Pikachu. It will tell us which ID it is. Abilities, forms, moves, order 35. Maybe it's number 35. Let's find out. 35. Oh, that's Clefairy. All right, fair enough. I don't mind. I don't mind at all. Excellent. The Pokemon API, fantastic. My view of the Pokemon API, not so much. But that's not a problem. 75. Cubone Pokédex ID. I want to know which number Cubone is. 104. Right. Cubone's one of my favorites. 104. Go. Look at that. Look at that. We've now got Cubone. Okay. I wonder if I can just search in some of my old code. I'm just doing a search on some of my old code. See if I can find something. Okay. Yes, that ought to work. Search results. Name. No. Oh. No. There is a .NET 6. .NET 6 to title case. There is a to title case in there. So it's textinfo.toTitle case. Oh, of course, because it doesn't hang off of it. I don't want to have to get a culture info to do it with. Although I could put it in a helper. Extend this so you can see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go public static string name to title case. Oh gosh. It's not a helper method, it's an extension method that hangs off of do you know what? I'm not going to do it as an extension. I don't want the Pokemon object to have it. So let's do it as an extension method. That's our interface. Pokemon extensions. So the reason I'm doing this is I don't want the Pokemon object, the Pokemon class, to have an idea of the current culture. So we'll use this, right? New culture info. What does the false do? Okay. Public static name to so we could do it on any string. This string input. Whoops. Right. Insert that. Our current culture. To do. Get the current culture. Whoops. Don't use a hard-coded one. Current culture equals new culture. What does use? Oh, use override. Okay, fair enough. Can we? Culture info dot get current culture. Current culture. There we go. Var thing, not car thing. Var thing is that's the text. Can we do dot text info? Yes, we can. Excellent. Right. So we'll go from there. Get the current culture with the text information. Excellent. To title case. Okay. Text info for current culture. Return. It's input, but input. Return input. Nope. Text info for current culture dot to title case input. Excellent. Info for current, right? To title case. So what I'm doing here. Whoops. So that is now my my extension method. I don't want the Pokemon class itself to learn anything about how we are displaying it. So the Pokemon class itself doesn't have it. Perhaps we could take this, because the Pokemon class shouldn't have anything to do with, where's my Pokemon extensions? Public static. I'll put void for now. Get types ordered by name or something. I don't know. Do that. Right. This is what? It is a list of type. Take in the list of type. Oops. List of types. It's like, oh, I don't know what a list is or a type is. Pokemon type. Yeah, so we just do return that. So if the types is not null, which is saying it can't be. What's wrong with this? Oh yes, this is just list of type. There we go. Well, what's wrong with that? Replace with then. All right. Ooh, I like that. So then there should be a line in here that is now. There we go. But it shouldn't take in the oops. Dot get types ordered by name. Yes. So then what's this? Saying it should take it as an enumerable. That's fair enough. Get types ordered by name. That's all right. Fair enough. So now, because the Pokemon class itself just is an anemic model, it just has the properties for the model itself. It doesn't have any other data in it, just has the model. So that's good. Get rid of the link there. That makes that simpler. Remove, let's go in the entire solution. Good luck. I know what we'll do. Oh, no, it's broken. That's fine. So take it as, do that at Pokemon to display.id. There we go. Get rid of the brackets around it. I want you to just display those two strings. Pokemon extensions is now broken. Doesn't know what type is. Guess again. Let's take a look at this then. So, for some reason, it needs that reference in there. Don't want to remove the redundant qualifier. I'm going to run it from here again. Again, I'm having trouble with my Rider instance, but that's my problem, not yours. Okay, so this should now, if I type in 104, it should say for the title, Cubone with a capital C, a hyphen, and then 104. It needs to be wider. It doesn't need to be 2 now, it needs to be 4. It needs to be 3. Yep, except that's going to break when we have slightly bigger, longer Pokemon names, but that's fine. Excellent. I like that. That's a little upsetting, but I think that's because we've got column 1, label ground. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. I'm not that upset by it. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Maybe I should just do padding magic or something. I don't know. What do we say? 73. That's really annoying. Oh well, doesn't matter. It's because I don't know Bootstrap, but it looks okay. It's working. Bulbasaur -1. It's maybe I shouldn't have the ID on there. Set this back to 2. But then of course The longer name's like 72, I think it was. That's going to fall over because now it's too long. Okay, fair enough. Doesn't matter. I don't mind. It'll work. It's working. So that was me taking Blazor version that ran on Blazor version 0.3 and .NET Core 2 and upgrading it to Blazor vLatest and .NET Core 6, or rather .NET 6. So you can see here, 6. I've enabled nullables, but that's fine. I've enabled implicit using, so that's fine. We're using WebAssembly version 6 and the WebAssembly dev server version 6. Fantastic. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap that up for now. I'm going to create a branch on this one, calling it .NET 6 or something. And then what I'll do is I will create a branch and commit it into that branch. And then that way, next time when I do some .NET stuff, I can then make it work. I can the next task for me is to commit that branch, pull it across to main. I hope it's called main. This is probably from before it was called master. So yeah, it's called master. Yikes. Okay, so I need to fix that. I'm going to change the main branch to main rather than master. I'm going to create a new branch called feature with the name of I don't know, .NET 6, and then I will attempt to, in the main branch, I will attempt to get in the next stream that I do, whenever I do it, we will try to get Docker working so it builds inside the Docker container. So that then when we pull request over to main, we'll then be able to get it working fully and then push it up to Docker Hub. But then we'll also have this currently doesn't work because that's been taken down because it didn't get used for ages. So when it works, we'll get that working. And then what I'll do is I'll pair up with someone, probably not on stream, pair up with someone to talk about how I want the UI to look, and then I'll work out making the UI look the way it does. What I want to do is I want to do it entirely inside of Blazor. I don't want to use any other frameworks. Perhaps what I should have done, like I said earlier on, was to scrap the entire UI as it is and pull in the latest version of Semantic and see what happens. Maybe that's what I'll do next time. I don't know. But anyway, what I want to say is, for anyone who has watched along but hasn't engaged in the chat, which is just above my head, please do next time. It's always fun to hear from other people and see what they have to say. Somebody may have been able to fix the UI. I don't know. Maybe you'd have been able to point me in the right direction of a different UI. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. We're now 3 hours and 8 minutes. Thank you all so much for watching. If you are watching, remember to check out the there is a podcast that's over here, the .NETcore.show, .netcore.show. I will paste that into here so that you can see. Let's put it into one of these files. If I can zoom in. .netcore.show. Head over there to find out about .NET stuff, because that's a podcast that I create. That's this here. We're up to episode 88 as of recording of this podcast. There will be no, as of record of this video, there will be no new episodes until January 7th, when we are talking with Sebastian from the Umbraco project, or Umbrago. I don't know. He said there were lots of different pronunciations. We're going to be talking to Sebastian about Umbraco, and then we're going to be talking to all sorts of different people throughout 2022. So definitely check this out. If you are interested in .NET, which is why you've probably watched this, head over to .NETcore.show. Look at the subscribe button in the top right-hand corner. Let me zoom in a little bit. Let me zoom. No, okay. Do it manually. Head over to the subscribe button in the top in the nav, and you'll find lots of different ways to subscribe to the show, so you can listen to it, or you can indeed listen to it here. It does have a player with every single episode listed all the way back to the beginning. I mean, they are listed, it's just not scrolling properly. And you can load them in and whatever. And then, of course, you can just grab the RSS if you're into VLC or gPodder or whatever, and grab that. But do definitely come back next time. There is a link in the header with the YouTube icon, which will take you to the YouTube channel where you will have been able to see this, or you can go to the URL if you can read it off of the browser. Let me go back a few pages. But yeah, do indeed check that out. I'm also the host of, oh gosh, I'm also one of the hosts of another podcast about video games called Waffling Tailors. Do check this out. It is we describe it as nonsense, right? If you like video games, you like listening to people talk about nonsense, then check that out. tabsandspaces.io. I'm also, on top of all of those, I'm one of the 3 folks behind Tabs and Spaces. Check it out. We've got a Discord. Come along to the Discord. It's all about software development, and we're talking to a lot of people about all sorts of stuff. Oh, goodness. I hadn't noticed that. Maybe I should talk to Zach about that. Is that my computer? Is that Chrome? I want to see this in Firefox, see if it does the same thing. Let's have a look. So I don't know whether you can see on the video. Interesting, it doesn't display there. But in Chrome, all of these controls are backwards. Ah, okay. So it's because it's on the back of the card. Interesting. I'll have to have a chat with Zach about that. He's the lead dev on the website. That's this fella here. But yes, we're on this show. We've coming up on season 3 now, so definitely get in touch with that. Send us an email. We have some community content. Anyone who wants to can send some content in, and we'll display it on here. It's almost like letters to the editor. Please do get in touch. But yes, that's all. So thank you ever so much, everyone. It has been a pleasure doing some code with you. Bye bye.